And welcome back to the Intrinsic Minds podcast, where it's about how you think, not what you think. Today, we actually have a special guest, but before I introduce, last week we did talk about and begin our journey into astrology once more, because we know that it is one of the most important things to be aware of these days, and its growing popularity, that we figured we'd start joining the party again. And last week when we had mentioned our love for the synchronistic and symbolic language that the universe speaks in, and that astrology is the king, the overarching science or representation of the archetypal nature of the universe. So today we are going to embark on the journey into the solar archetype, and we brought on a very special guest, Amanda, who is an astrologer. And what else would you even consider yourself besides just esotericist, right? Mystic. What do we got?
I generally call myself a guide because I am here to guide. I have been dubbed the Oracle of Reflection. However, I was given that name because I was put in a deck of cards and I was the Oracle card of reflection. But I generally go with, I am an intuitive guide. I am here to be a mirror to help you see what is otherwise right there in front of you and help you understand why and what you're doing here, and basically help to decode the language of astrology, otherwise the language of your timing. And I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. And this series is already off to such a great start. The first episode was full of such great wisdom, and I cannot wait to dive into this with you.
Awesome. Gio, how are we doing today?
Doing good. Doing great.
I always got to know, dude. I always got to ask.
I've been indulging in very Virgo fucking energy. But not only that though, really tapping into, we were just talking about house systems before, really tapping into more so of the sun in the ninth house. If you can figure out why.
Is that your equal house or whole sign, or is that your Placidus?
That would be the whole sign house. Well, no, equal, right? Equal, yeah.
Either or, because in your equal, I think I've looked. I think that it's in your ninth. So guess why? So that would be the house of spirituality and philosophical higher learning. Travel as well. I think that
there you go.
Your excuse to go to Italy, or is that
that was more of my implication towards it. Yeah.
Okay.
Finally said everything.
You booked it?
Flights booked. The places being stayed
Blessings.
are fucking booked. Yes.
Awesome.
Your IC and Sag, so you're going to feel at home traveling to far distant places.
God, but it's been a pain in the ass.
He's quite literally going to
that's the Virgo
the home country. He's going to the homeland.
Well, here's the thing though. But I'm very Taurian in nature in a certain way. So it's like things are booked, right? But also did things a certain way where it was like, my dad had like this person, and like that's how we contacted for the one place that we're staying and shit like that. And it was like, over the phone, oh yeah, okay, you're booked or whatever, you're gonna pay when you get here, whatever and stuff, right? All in Italian. But then I resort back to the boss, to my girlfriend, and she was like, first of all, Virgo moon, Virgo rising. What the fuck? There's no confirmation. What about like an email? Something? Like no confirmation. I'm like, no. I'm like, that's not how it's done over there. I'm like, we're paying in euros, and like that's just how it is. No, you need to ask. There needs to be a confirmation. There needs to be this. I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, I get it. You're right, but no.
Yeah, and and that Virgo energy is a trine to your it puts your Taurus, get your off your lazy fat ass and start getting things in order. That's what the Virgo energy is,
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck? Come on, this. You're a Virgo too. Don't you need that confirmation? What happens if this happens? What happens? I'm like, I get it. I was but
she's gonna pull the bull along the, she's gonna farm Italy with your ass. That's what she's gonna do.
Yeah. But I was like, hey, we get lost.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. Yeah, you got the Jupiter conjunct But when just is going through that, yeah, actually, why did we miss that before our little pre-talk? You got Jupiter conjuncting your sun.
Oh, snap. That's
shit.
Literally.
No, but it's funny though. Months ago, I alluded to that. This was going to happen. And I alluded that I was like, that's probably when I'm going to actually book the trip. Even though I was thinking about booking it way before, it didn't happen.
Yeah,
like,
you
that
were
was the other
talking
thing.
about this time ago. And did you even put two and two together? That I'm pretty sure as we speak, North Node is hanging out there, Mercury,
Yeah, there was a lot of that energy. I know that with Jupiter and even the nodes and stuff like that. And I was and a lot of getting back to your roots and all that shit. But I was I sat there and I kind of let it go because I didn't want to fall on this. I started realizing as I was doing it that I was let's remember, you can't just say, hey, I'm going to do it at this time. This is what I mean by don't let astrology control your life.
Mm-hmm.
Use it to the right benefit and stuff like that. Let's not to mention Mercury retrograde. We just went through, we're just going through that shit. You know what I mean? There's other things at play too. So I didn't want to let that cloud my judgment. And I didn't, because that was the other thing I had planned during that time when I had noted those things that I was this shit's going to be going on then. And I was trying to book things then. Didn't happen. It didn't happen. Prices weren't right. The value of it wasn't worth all that shit. All the Taurian energy that was coming up. And it was I had to wait. And it was and with a fucking Virgo chirping in your ear, that ain't easy,
Well, yeah, welcome to my life now. I got to deal with your ass all the time with the fucking rising sign. It's we got to get the right.
Hey, man, I'm a lot more easy going.
No, I know. No, the Taurus energy, you're at some point, you're I give whatever.
Yeah, I give up. I'm yeah, whatever.
Don't forget the Pisces moon. The Pisces moon just is it's okay.
Yeah.
I trust. It'll be fine.
And our moon's trine, our partile trine. So 10 degrees Pisces, 10 degrees Cancer. So we it's a soothing, I don't know what, and she has a Virgo moon, your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Oh, so opposite. Okay. Oh, yeah, good call, Amanda. Yeah. So you have an opposition in your
side,
but that's I think most people are afraid of that.
Can I speak on synastry and having the moons being opposite? So my boyfriend has a Leo moon, I'm an Aquarius moon, and we are opposite in terms of our emotional energy and expressions. We've been together 4.5 years, and we've definitely had our challenges and our activations as well too. But let me tell you, it gets better with time. It gets better with time. And when you learn to work with that opposition, it is awesome. And it's the same thing too with if you have opposing sun signs, you eventually learn to balance each other out. But I almost find it more difficult with a sun sign because it's the battle of the ego. Whereas with the moon, it's more emotional. And depending on your ability to work through those emotions, it can be more challenging or an easier ride.
Well, wouldn't but Geo would have the ideal moon for that because of Pisces. I think mutable moons are probably able to deal with that a lot better than I have a card
more constructively. Yeah.
But here's the thing though, is sometimes my immediate approach according to my moon is too much on one side. So therefore, I don't appease to that other way to balance the scales. And this is funny because this is something I learned a long time ago in astrology. Damn, I wish I remember who the hell it was that said it. But this is the power of astrology too, is when you know your partner or somebody that's close to you enough in your own life, and you can know their moon sign, and you can know when they're in the cycle of their moon, especially a woman, the moon cycle, menstrual cycle, all that stuff. You can know what to do. You can know how to use their moon. You can know how to just do those things. So for a Virgo moon, it's yes, be a little bit more the Piscean side is be a little bit more sporadic, be a little bit more unpredictable in a sort of way, be a little bit more interchangeable, surrendering and stuff like that. But make sure that you have a plan when you do it. Make sure that you calculated on when you do. Make sure that you kind of keep those things in mind. Make sure you pay attention to their schedule, pay attention to their shit. You know what I mean? Do those things. I'm not great at it. Even with that awareness, I'm not great at it because it goes against my Taurian stubbornness. You know,
I dated an Aries moon and I'm a Cancer moon. So, and that lasted for about 3.5 years. And yeah, I needed my bum powdered with baby powder every now and then. And she needed to be, you know, she wanted to have like boxing matches. So, or on the more passionate side, just hot sex or something like that. So that was that end, but you're dealing with the square. It's kind of like, nah, I kind of just want to cuddle. It's like, nah, bitch, I just want to fuck, you know? It's like, all right.
I was going to say that combination is so like.
Well, we both were eighth house moons. So, because she was a Virgo rising. So we had the eighth. So I was like, you know, it's like, but I'd be like crying during it, and she'd be like, yeah, you know. No, that's definitely not what happened. My Mars and Pisces would swim with the moment. But yeah, I mean, it is funny, right? Knowing the archetypes of your partner totally allows. And the last episode we talked about the inherent nature of the universe is that it speaks in symbols, it speaks in archetypes, and you can see it. And as long as you open up the door and you open up your mind to it, then it will just keep showing you the way and keep showing these things. And astrology is just that. It's the science of that. There's no better science to see the synchronicity or to see the archetypal in the archetypal universe. The book I'm reading with Rem Butler, he said astrology is not concretely predictive, but it's archetypally predictive. Mm-hmm. And that's what you could start seeing that. And then having a partner is, you get to see the mirror of their chart every day because you're talking to them every day. You're with them every day. You do think you're going, you know, you travel with them. You get to see all the different aspects of them. And that opens you just keep opening up the door. Now I'm a Sag rising, so I immediately like open the door, swing open, and I just kind of yelling like, what's going on here? You know, and I just want to check and see everything and start playing with it all. Gemini, Sag, you know, like just, and that's a beautiful part. And that is the power of astrology and knowing not the physical DNA, but the spiritual DNA of a person. And, you know, that's why we want to expand on each and every archetype within conversation.
What better way than to kick off this series with the sun, especially as something with maybe more of the advanced viewers who kind of got past the sun sign astrology thing. Like, oh wait, it's like that fucking Billy Mays. Oh wait, there's more. Like when it comes to this, and I'm discovering it when really getting into more of the metaphysical understanding of the sun, which we'll get to and stuff. But you know, this is good when it comes to that. We're giving you some, you know, precursor examples right now with some things in the chart within the chart, and we'll give you more with our charts and other different aspects according to the sun as well. Thank you, Ray, for, you know, providing us with that remembrance to do that. But yeah, this is going to be good. This is going to be a good series. And Amanda's going to join us on many other ones. I don't give a shit what she says. She's going to join us on many other ones. She'll probably join us on the moon one too. I'll probably be here a lot.
Oh yeah,
she'll get used to it. Get used to it because like it'll be good. It'll be healthy.
But I'm also
everybody.
A grand crosser with a lot of Piscean energy, so I might be there and then I might not be there. But I think I'm gonna be there. So.
That's what it is and stuff. But before anything, make sure you like this video. Like this video. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Because guess what? This is gonna be good. This is gonna get out there. This needs to be understood a little bit more. We need a little bit more multidimensional like shit when it comes to the we need to be able to integrate some of this stuff, you know, not just who's my lover, who's my this, who's my that.
Yes, getting away from the cookie cutter basic like fee fi fo fum that we're seeing all over social media and getting to the guts of it, because it's about damn time. And I know a lot of us and a lot of folks that discovered astrology, especially like around like 2019, 2020, it took that really big boom. A lot of people have been studying, you know, they've been taking their notes, checking them over, getting to know their charts. People are ready for more advanced content. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's define this earth plane and explore different planes as well. It's time. So.
You know, my Sagittarian layer to this would be bringing in the bigger picture, the idealism, the philosophy of astrology, also the esotericism. A lot of people don't. I'm going to be bringing up a lot of Bill Donohue's work in this series and mythology and more of the syncretism aspect, because I think that's the part we're missing. Like it's the esoteric, because even in the astrological realm, when people say esotericist or I study esotericism, or if they do say that at all, a lot of people still look at the exoteric version, meaning like, you know, can I be dating at this time? Is my job going to come? Is my money going to come? And that all works. It's all a beautiful thing. I think it's a great, you know, it's like a K-6 type of astrology where you're looking at your life and being able to know the cycles and knowing what's coming in the physical. But
well, you can't feed a baby a steak. You literally can't feed a baby a steak. You need to start with baby food, and then they get into solids, and then they eventually are able to eat an apple, and then eventually they grow old enough teeth to eat the full meal. And that's essentially what this is. This is the steak.
Yeah. Unless, I mean, with the teeth thing, unless you have a Saturn in the second house and you start losing them at 33, then, you know, whatever.
No.
Well, I'm dealing with that. Like, my molars are gone. But yeah, no, really, that's an exoteric, by the way, exoteric way of seeing it. But yeah, and that's I think, because I explained last week when we were talking about, you know, what like got us into it and all of that. And for me, it was the esoteric, like the mandala of astrology, where you look at, say, just like the solar archetype, and then you notice all the mythologies. You could see the archetype play out in movies, of course, and that's an easy one, hero's journey, right? But like, you see the mandala of things that go on within the body, go on within nature, go on within the soul, the conscious mind, and all of that stuff, where it's like you could see it as just a solar principle, where you could see it as the sun being life-giving, being in character and all of that. But there's just so many, it's a mandala. You could literally stare at it and observe that archetype and principle, and you could then start peeling that just for one part, just for one symbol, peeling back that onion.
Ray, you literally are on the same page as me. So I created an ebook. It's more of a workbook than anything, but I created something called the 8-step method, because I've just kind of developed my own personal practice around when I dissect a natal chart. And the first step, before even diving into what you think you should dive into, is always to observe. To literally meditate on the mandala, meditate on the alchemy of your soul and what it is that you're looking at. That's really interesting. That's a really interesting perspective, because I don't often hear people state that that's what really got them in. Normally it's like, for me, it was my moon sign. Discovering my moon sign, I was like, oh my God, I'm seen. But
well, and you heard me say before that I couldn't really kind of pinpoint. I had a Gemini moment where I'm like, yeah, maybe it was my rising. Yeah, it was like because the Sag, because I'm the big thinker and all that. But it was more.
Glad you sat with it.
Well, yeah, and so now that now that we're ping ponging this, it really was more so the nature of life and the cosmology and everything of reality and like the existence itself and the big question. And then seeing the fractal nature of the mandala, seeing things break down as connected all over and seeing things as deeper and the symbolism. And I got to thank Bill Donahue and Santos Bonacci, of course. And then, you know, that all that stuff came first. And then I had said, when I'd watched Zeitgeist and I saw the religious aspects that were parallel to astrology and all of that. And I go, oh, and then there's the biblical stuff. I'm like, oh, wow. And then I got into the horoscopes. Then I was like, okay, this is the way the universe talks. I get it now. Like I'm starting to see how everything kind of plays out and is interconnected on a more symbolic nature. And and to be honest with you, that's why it does sound like a Sagittarian way to kind of like squeeze your way into this stuff. So let's hit both of you guys. What was the thing that really, was it just solar sun sign astrology that was like, I love this and I believe in this and this is what, or you guys, you did exaggerate a little bit on the moon sign. Was it that? What it was the way it hit the way you felt? Like that's what it sounds like.
Yes. I'll give you a little bit of a story time, because my Mercury in Pisces in my 9th house can only speak, actually equal house 8, it's 8th house with Placidus's 9th. Either way, I speak in metaphors. So Here we go. I'm in college. I'm in my 2nd semester of studying massage therapy. And of course, I hang out with all the yoga teachers and hippies. And at this point in time, it's 2017. I'm in the process of bridging my social work, kind of more 3D career into more of a holistic passion. At that point, I'm in the process of waking up. I already had a bit of awakening, and, I'm dabbling my toes into a bunch of different pots, but I was mainly focused on energy healing and tarot at the time. And so I remember sitting with my friends. We were literally, it was like a fun lecture. So there wasn't really much going on. And we were just sitting in the back of class. Yeah, I was a bit of a shit disturber, even in college. But we're talking, and they're literally looking at their birth charts on their phones, but they're using like cafe astrology because that's really all there was available. There weren't really any cool astrology apps at the time. And they were like, "Oh, Amanda, what's your chart? What's your sun, moon, rising?" And at the time I hadn't heard of that. And this is it's 2016. I was in college. That's right. It was like September. Yeah. Because I had done this. Okay. I had to go back for a little bit on time. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like sun, moon, rising? All I knew at that point is that I was at Pisces. And again, just like Ray was saying earlier, you never fully resonated with being a Gemini. You were like, And for me being a Pisces, I was like, I'm a little, I'm not so wishy-washy as this describes, like I'm not such a big sap. I'm pretty logical, I'm kind of weird, kind of fits the description, not really. And I knew my birthday was on February 20th. So I kind of suspected that I might have been on the cusp. All right. As it turns out, let me tell you, I actually kind of was. And when they pulled up my chart, I knew all of my birth details. First thing she goes, she's like, "Oh, you're basically a new moon, baby. Your sun is in Pisces, but you're barely a Pisces. Your moon's actually in Aquarius." But then she goes on and she makes a scrunchy face and she goes, "You have a lot of squares." And then they were like, she like smiled. She didn't really know what to tell me, but she was just like, "You should look into astrology," just like smiling at me, but like not really telling me why. She's like, "You should look into this," because she made a really weird face when she said that. And I was like, why are you giving me a really weird face right now? And to tell you the truth, I had a really complex childhood and upbringing, and I needed to take a lot of time to really reprogram my mind and my lifestyle. And so when I actually went home and pulled it up for myself and just started like looking into, I didn't even go into any of the other placements. I just looked up the sun and the moon because I was like, wait, she said something about my moon being in Aquarius. And I was like, I always kind of felt like an Aquarian. So I started looking into it and I realized, now I know better. My sun is at 2 degrees Pisces. My moon is 24 degrees Aquarius, conjunct Saturn by 2 degrees. But what was the additional kicker was looking into my sun moon placement. And at the time I was looking at tropical. So I see my, not just tropical, but Placidus house system. Sorry. When I look at the Placidus house system, I see myself within like the more 3D matrix, mundane situations that we live with. You know what I mean? Like the more like relationship stuff, family, friends, job, career, everyday typical stuff within the earth plane. And at the time it resonated with me big time because the 8th house and having my moon in Aquarius at the time, realizing just certain emotional reactions that I used to have with things and how they didn't always fully match up with the sun in the Pisces. I was like, wow, I actually feel really seen right now. And so I took a lot of time to dissect my big three, and then I eventually got more into the whole chart. I eventually started being mentored by an astrologer. So it's funny because my studies in astrology were never formal. They were always with a mentor, and I always studied with a mentor. And that's how I learned about astrology, through studying my own chart and getting to know it. But it all started with discovering my moon conjunct my sun and Saturn in the 8th house. That was like really eye-opening for me. And then of course the cherry on top with my Cancer ascendant and having so many synastry aspects with my family with Cancer. It's insane. That was a whole other thing too that just really convinced me there was something really brilliant with astrology. And honestly, it's what really led me to want to redefine my passion for helping people. I was never happy with being a social service worker. I had a really hard time working with kids within the system and never fully being able to get them out of it, because all the things I used to have to offer were literally, let's put a square peg on a round hole and deal with it. No, every single one of us have a different, unique need that is totally special for you. And I realized, like, okay, just by understanding this piece of the puzzle, not even the full picture, I now know that there is something out there for me to help me help myself. And that was inspiring. And it's been 7 years, going on 7 years, probably this fall, I think, that I've been studying this language, and I will never look back. And it's only grown from that point. And I'm, again, stoked to be with you guys and diving deep into all these different roles and archetypes. So,
yeah, and likewise, you know, we're glad. I think we're learning the involvement, like having Brandon on 2 weeks ago and all that, just having this, being able to have conversations with other people. And that's, I guess it is the point of our podcast. You know, Intrinsic Minds isn't some egotistical saying, well, we are the most valuable minds in the universe. You know, it's not like that. You know, it's about picking the brains of others and having that. And what I also took from that, which is a great little mini lesson of this talk before we've even touched on what the sun is and all of that, is as much as the sun, like, you know, it's the most known and it's the easiest to gravitate to when you're first learning this stuff on a basic level, that other things will get you, like this is what I'm learning already from this, is the other aspects that you see are going to feed that solar archetype that you have. And when you see the chart for what it is or what's most relatable to you. So if it was your moon and Saturn and all of that, or anything else that you see in your chart, that's going to help you kind of see it more and really peel back the onion on that. And then you'll be able to enjoy this a lot more and see the value in astrology, opposed to just, you know, I had, real quick, let me correct myself from last week. I said people read magazines. No, they don't. But I had made the correlation like, 17 magazine type astrology, which, yeah, like, you know, 10, 15 years ago, that was really a thing, or newspaper astrology. But really, it's just the way of seeing it like that, and that bland, just sun sign astrology. You're going to find so much more when you go start studying it deeper, or go talk to an astrologer and understand the language. So had to throw that in there. Sure. Yeah. Gio, what got you?
So something that you said too was like that whole thing of and we talked about it earlier too, was this whole like recognition of like that first sign indulgence. And this will lead to the whole sun archetype, sun indulgence that we're going to do, right? But like, you know, that first sign thing, that denial that we had, right? Most people, it's their sun sign, like that's what they came into. That's the first thing that they knew. And denying, I'm not exactly this way, whatever, especially people that are not so inclined to agree or go into the astrology for, you know, when they're introduced. But that's the thing, though. It's like, that's the thing that of importance that I think that needs to be recognized and become aware of, is that the fact that it's like, you're not resonating with that. Why aren't you? Are you asking the questions afterwards? Why aren't you resonating with that? Is it a refusal? Is this your own ego coming into play because it doesn't want to acknowledge this inferior part of which that you've labeled inferior, right? Subconsciously, in a sort of way. Put this part of yourself down, but this is probably one of the most active parts of yourself. Well, this is something that, looking deeper into the sun, like we're going to go into, I think is going to actually help you come to that awareness, help you come to, and then once you do that with just your sun, and you do just your chart, which that was like the big pivotal moment for me when it came to astrology, was the letting go of allowing information to be presented to me and not refusing any of it, not denying any of it. Lucky when astrology was presented to me that I was at such a vulnerable state and such a all that, when you're very submissive, okay, receptive, better word, rather than submissive. But I was in a submissive state.
I don't feel like I was putting you in submission with just saying, hey, Gio, check this app out.
You know, I was receptive, but because I was submissive, my normal egotistical self would not have been that receptive.
Okay. Yeah.
I had to be submissive. I was in a submissive state. So this is for anybody who is at a down and a low point in their life, or maybe they just feel like that their confidence is shot to hell and stuff. Well, astrology could get you back on the track. I'm telling you what, it really
that you
can.
say that. Yep. Because when I actually pulled up my chart for the first time, like after I finished that class and I looked into it, I was living with a partner at the time. Like I was living with a boyfriend and I was like not happy. And I was like, I know I gotta go. Like the relationship was super toxic. I was like, I'm not happy. I gotta get out of here. And I'm not feeling validated. And it was like the beginning of me realizing my power. And that was like a relationship that just sort of forced me to dilute that. And yeah, starting to look into that really gave me the empowerment to see myself as who I really am, away from all this fluff society tries to put on you and define you.
You gotta look past the superficial self. You gotta look past the physical self, and not just the sun. But once again, this is a also, you know, we had our initial episode and we've kind of alluded to this already, and we've went in depth enough about this, but we're going to constantly reinforce that, because that's the whole point. Is Ray, you said it in the last episode, this is about understanding the faculties and the uses of this as empowerment, as not just some instant gratification thing, not as just some sort of fluffer to boost your ego. That's not what it's about. It's about getting your ego in check. It's about using your ego. Idea of ego death. Like, yes, there is a death aspect to everything that we deal with. It's always about the death, right? And this is something that's why, like, introductory, this is a little bit like in your face, because like sun is very representative of death, even though that's controversial in a way, because we know sun to be life. But like, let's shift in that way. Let's get into understanding the sun, the archetype, the symbolism, the mythology, the allegory, stuff like that, even the astrological implications. So let's kick it off this way, Amanda, and then we'll switch it off right to Ray and stuff. Give us some of the basic understandings, right, with your own implication of it, even more, of the sun, what it represents, the astrology, the archetype. Let's go into that.
Okay, so I have a few different ways that I like to look at the sun, but the sun at its essence, if you're looking at it astrologically in terms of self-awareness, if you look at your natal birth chart, like a manuscript to like the TV series of your life, all the planets represent different roles. The zodiac animate those roles with their unique archetypes. And depending on where those planets are placed within the houses, they animate the themes that are more present. So the sun is your leading role. Okay. It's the star of the show. It's leading the way. It's how you act. It's how you create. It's how you move through this world. It's what you're inspired by. It's basically like the main theme. That's the way I see it. It's interesting too, because depending on which house the sun is in, your connection to your sun sign might either be really, really enhanced and expansive and exacerbated, or it's really muted. Because I can't tell you how many times I've met a Leo, for example, that's a 12th house Leo, and they're like basically like a sad little Eeyore, and they don't resonate with their sun sign. It's like, oh, I wonder why. You find out they're a 12th house Leo aspected with Chiron conjunct. It's like, oh, okay, there you go. So realizing that the sun, even though the sun with a certain archetype, okay, you can look at it as a certain cookie cutter way. But then when you go above looking at just the role of the sun and you see how the sun is related to other roles in your chart, all of a sudden you start to see the alchemy here. And so what I find interesting about the sun is that it's also connected to your awareness. So energetically speaking, the sun and the moon, which are the luminaries, again, the moon we're not going to talk much about in this specific episode, but the sun and the moon energetically are connected to your third eye. When you get to understand the third eye, you get to understand that it has everything to do with pattern reception, understanding conscious and subconscious recognition. And it's also just understanding how your mind works. And so when you look at the sun, you look at how your conscious patterns work. Now, moving away from the self and looking at the collective, we also collectively, the most common system we use is tropical astrology, and we still use the same system of the equinoxes that we have for the last 2,000 years. So technically, the pattern of the sun and the 365-day cycle of the sun also mirrors the cyclical growth and progression of our own human nature. And we see this within the seasons. We see this within nature. We see it within ourselves. Because let me tell you, as a Pisces, I absolutely thrive in Cancer season or Scorpio season, for example. But the second I hit like Gemini season or Sag season, all of a sudden everything goes spaghetti-o. And why? Because I have certain aspects there and relationships there. And that's when you get to know your place as the sun being your leading role within your day-to-day life, but also within the collective standpoint of things. Getting to know your sun sign can also help you to understand your conscious cyclical nature and how you think and how certain patterns might be exacerbated, activated, or blocked at certain points. And so I find it really interesting too, because the sun, again, getting away from understanding our own personal patterns, nature is always a mirror of the sun, and all of the symbolism of what happens through the sun cycles. And again, we look at the archetypes of the zodiac to measure the different expressions of the sun around the ecliptic from the esoteric archetypal perspective. Now, in terms of a more like archetypal standpoint, there are so many different gods and goddesses and deities that are connected to the sun. And oftentimes these are the deities that are seen to be as like the prime creators, the prime luminaries. And that's definitely the case, especially in many, many religions and practices, with the exception of more monotheistic practices, of course. But even then, like the sun has been the center of worship for so long. And it's why, for the most part, when people discover astrology, they spend so much time focusing on the sun, because it literally is the leading role. It's the star of the show. So that's my perspective. Are we going into looking at personal sun aspects right now, or are we saving that for a different?
We'll get there. We're gonna get there.
I guess
I want to hear Ray more of obviously a lot of those things are going to be things that you've come into too, that we've all have come into a certain understanding, but I want to get now your perspective on things and your addition.
Life's a living allegory, so that's the way I'm going to approach it. And you look at the symbolism, and if you look at the conventional way to look at the solar system, that the sun is the center of it all, right? The life giver, right? So it's the center of the solar system. So it's going to be the center of your solar system, and it's going to have the most gravity. So I think on a conscious level, or even maybe subconscious level, that we're going to be attracted to that. And that's why we get, it's that Leo, because if you think the sun being ruled by Leo, it's what people are going to see me for and how I'm accepted and all that other stuff, right? And how it's the things you can see, unless you have a 12th house sun, but most of the time it's things you could see. So of course you're going to gravitate to that. And it's going to be what drives you and what motivates you. And because of that, and it shines so bright, anybody getting into this is immediately going to look, and of course your birthday, your birthday. It's like, I was born in May. My birthday is this Friday. I was born May 26th. That's Gemini. And everybody knows that. So it's like the sun. And it's funny. I'm going to bring something up about what I said about the Bible, but how funny even archetypes play out, and how the human consciousness ends up being attracted to things, or how we experience and work with certain things, or how they end up showing up, is everybody knows their sun sign, and you can always see the sun, and everyone knows what the sun is. So of course, in astrology, the attraction of that, the metaphysical nature of when you learn astrology, like the sun, everybody's going to see it, and everyone's going to want to know it, and they're going to want to know how they express and how they work with other people and how they work through themselves, and who am I, and I, right? The Leo, me, I. This is where I sit on the throne, and all of that.
Star of the show.
And are you saying there's a created morphic resonance around the sun?
You kind of caught it, right? I mean, because we've talked about it, and it really, but I would say that's a natural morphic resonance, right? Because you can't
1,000%.
walk outside and not see the sun. So of course that energy of solar energy being just put directly in your face soon as you get into this, of course, that's the first thing that's going to be brought up or what you're aware of. Because when you walk outside, usually that is the first thing that you're aware of. So it plays out, right?
Us as human beings cannot exist without the sun. There we go.
Right.
We cease to exist without it.
Right.
In this density.
The solar principle, also the Christ principle. And I'll get into that later on with the theological perspective of, Jesus being the sun, or Krishna being the sun, or Horus being the sun. And it's the life giver. It's the something that shines the light and gives everything to humanity itself and all that. So that's your principle of your solar energy, is what can you give to everybody. And what I wanted to say, what I'd said before, just a little sidebar, is I was saying last week that morphic resonance to the Bible is that it was written in the age of Pisces, and Jesus was born at the beginning of age of Pisces. And the Bible is so Piscean. It's so mystic. It's opposite of a Virgo energy. It's like you're going to have to guess through all this deception and through all this foggy, misty way of reading a book. And that was a morphic resonant way of that book being written for the age of Pisces, archetypally playing out as this is the book that represents the age. And it's even written like a Piscean type of energy. Same thing, like I said, with the sun playing out through the chart. Of course, you're going to gravitate towards it the most. It's what's going to be put in your face, and it's going to be what you're going to want to feel on a conscious level to say, this is who I am. So that's how I see the sun, and you can see the archetype play out in many other things. And of course, we call it the hero's journey as well. So anytime you're watching a movie, of course, who's the main character? It's the sun, right?
I have something to reinforce with that, right? With the last thing you just said, especially with the age of Pisces and Jesus and that archetypal thing, compared to now where we are, even astrologically. Now, and I think what's a big indicator of where we are now is this whole Saturn Pisces indication right now, is because I think the sun is very much so correlated with just as much as Saturn. And I figure out why it is, and I'll go into it more and everything. But I mean, like we said, the sun has been the first indicator. It's been the first understanding. It's been the first homage to. It's been like this brilliance that has just been easily aware of and everything, and then constitutes an immediate time in that sort of sense. So, and we know that chrono time, we know that Saturn is associated with time in that way. So even archetypal understanding, we can see how the sun and Saturn have a relation. Like I said, we'll get more into it. And I think it's a little bit juicy when it comes to that. But
it's super juicy.
Yeah, I already have it. Yeah, immediately when you started talking about this, I see you did too, man.
and I'm glad I fucking poked you both in the butt. But the thing is we say that we're still in the age of Pisces. Some people want to jump the gun and say that we're already in the age of Aquarius. No, I think there's a dawning to it. Like it's been said, I think that there is an implication to Aquarius, but we're jumping ahead and we're getting too eager to ourselves, and we still need to understand the age that we are in or transitioning out of, right? So if the age, and we know that the ages come in the sense of understanding where the sun is, where the sun rises on that certain point of the equinox, whatever, on a specific constellation and a sign, and it's Pisces, and it's been Pisces for the longest time, then maybe, and sun being an indicator of time on an everyday level, then we should look to the other planet of Saturn, which is an indication of time, of life and death in that certain way, which so is the sun. Once again, we'll get more into that of how it has that correlation. But the Saturnian side of it, the Saturnian implication, is once again bringing it to the forefront while everybody else is paying attention and so gung-ho on the Aquarian energy. Everybody's so gung-ho on this whole Pluto and Aquarius, all this Aquarian energy. Like, and meantime, it's like, well, are we going to also focus on where we actually cosmically are, according to everything that we constantly preach on. And therefore that's something that we need to understand with a deep reconciliation with time, personally, personal time, personal affiliation with what time means to us, what our time is, how we value time, right? The nodal point. Like, we're not looking at these other aspects in the chart in that sort of sense. And I think Saturn's given us that implication. Also, Saturn is supposed to be giving us the discipline in that sort of way. But once again, I think my whole kicker to this is that Saturn and the Sun play more hand in hand than we know. Let's not forget, the Sun is ruled by Leo. Saturn is ruled traditionally by Aquarius, and those two are on the same axis. I'll leave it at that.
Saturn, aka Kronos, is also connected to agriculture, connected to the sun and the moon, and the cycles of how we reap and sow our crop within this earth plane, within this firmament.
It was homage as a fertility god.
Absolutely.
And it's an earth, and it's ruled more by, and if you want to go more modern, being Capricorn as well, it is earthly expression of time and all of that, where I feel like what the sun is working underneath the firmament, or underneath in the realm of Saturn, because Saturn does rule the physical nature of the realm, the sun bringing that spiritual energy through the firmament, and then manifesting it through into the Saturnian realm, but the sun inherently being the all over encompassing spirit or energy
that
itself.
Lights up the room.
Right. It's piercing through the firmament like a projector. And then that's bringing energies from beyond the firmament, beyond the Saturnian limitations, but you do need both. And that's why the story of Horus and Set, that's why Set would be Saturn, and that's why Horus would be the sun or Jesus. And that's why we get the word hours, which is just an anagram of Horus, where you have the horoscope, where you have the horizon, all working with the sun. And you could see that, of course, and we were talking about oppositions before we started recording too. So like, that's an opposition in itself. And that's why it's that balance, right? It's the balance of, if you're too solar, if you're too Leo-like, and you're too like, you have all the spirit in the world, but no discipline, then that imbalance will show itself. But if you have all the discipline in the world and no spirit, then you're just going to be a stiff, and no one's going to, you're not, you might be successful. You might be that 10th house, 11th house success of being seen as something, but not have your own Leo-like shine with that. You'll just have the physical look of success, but the real success comes from that solar principle, or the balance of both. And that's what you learn by seeing the archetypes play out with each other.
Yeah, we have to like not shy away from there's constantly, when you go into these communities, that it's constantly this wanting to go back to singularity and demonize duality and stuff like that. But I think we can learn something through the dualistic nature that's already presented to us in this sort of fashion that is it's just sort of an effect already. So you have day and night, and of course we know that the sun is like, there's no life without the sun in this physical sense, in this way that we've come to terms with it, that it allows structure to our solar system, that it's representative of time, it's life, it's energy, it's positivity, power, and it's a sense of direction in where we are in our life and what we're doing, and what it is to by the means of living and stuff. So when you have day and night, day represents the safety, the harmony, the light, radiance. It's like proper measures of things and rationality in that sort of sense. But then when you get to the night ends up being dangerous. It's the evil. Apparently, it's destabilizing of the certain natures that already were inherited to us by the day. in that sort of sense. It's irrationality, it's darkness, it's blindness in that sort of sense. But what do we understand just by our own vision? I'm not going to even call it anything else. By what we see is that the sun makes that journey no matter what. The sun goes from that visibility in something of our awareness, but once it comes out of that way, dips below the ecliptic and everything and stuff, it goes to that journey of the darkness, but it still is that emanation. It still is bright in that way.
You saying this, I got to interject real quick, because the way you just described it, and if you think of it archetypally in the story of the hero's journey, what the sun is and what Saturn is, because sun ruling day, Saturn ruling night. The sun is the protagonist, and the Saturn placement usually is what would come off as the antagonist. And if you look at any movie, no movie is a movie without the challenge or the antagonist. You can't have the superhero, you can't have the journey itself, you cannot have the guy overcoming this, there's something has to be overcome. And that's, if you look at it in that archetypal way, if you want to see a good and evil, I think that's just human play. That's 3D world. Yeah. We need that way to see it, so we can, just like we needed to make God a guy, like a human, because then we could say, oh, if I'm going to pray, I got to have this image of this dude with a beard, and I got to talk to him and all that. So I need the imagery. And that's what's beautiful about archetypal stuff. If you don't take it absolutely literal, thank you, Bill Donahue. If you just see it for the symbol that it is, and you use that imagination of yours to put different, we all have little inner worlds where we say our motivations. For me, it's with football. Yeah, I love the Bucks, or I love Dragon Ball Z, right? Or I love it. There's certain stories that will get me. Those archetypes will stick. Like if I need to be like a badass in the moment, I think of fucking Levi from Attack on Titan. And all of a sudden he's playing out. That archetype is going, yeah, this is the shit that I need to whatever. And you use these symbols or characters or parts of these stories, like astrology does, with just watching the observation of nature and the sun going from light going back, then the darkness coming up, and that archetypal, symbolic, allegorical way of seeing it, saying the sun comes back up, the hero always rises and kills the antagonist to win the whatever he's after. And that's when you were describing it, that's immediately what was playing out in my head. So I had to get that out. Yeah,
no, absolutely. That's what I mean, though. It's like you can't know it necessarily, this sort of journey without or this sort of willpower that is needed sometimes with certain things. You can't know that you have willpower without the feeling of that willpower or something initiating power and stuff like that. And you can't feel that willpower without visualizing it. That's the whole point of the archetypal understanding in this sort of sense, is because it's helping us as human beings of our nature, in our mental faculties, the way that they are, is that we're trying to embody that through our rational, logical thinking and our emotional thinking and stuff like that too. But what the sun is showing us when we start going into more of this understanding is showing that, oh, okay, well, we see that and we can embody that because we're so accustomed and the acknowledgement of that rising of the sun and going that way. But then once it goes down, we just say goodbye to that power. We just let that power be. We just let it go. We don't know what it really traverses and stuff like that. And it's like, that means that sun, that illumination, that power is still available and still very predominant, but is not the most dominant thing in the underworld, in the darkness, in the shadows. And that's what it's trying to tell us in that sort of sense, is that, oh, we need to become more illuminated. We need to become more adept to the shadow sides. We need to become more aware of what is actually at hand and what is playing in that darkness, and what is really exchanging in that realm. And that realm is the realm of Saturn. That realm is the domination of what would be what emanates the sun, which you can say is the black sun, the dark sun. The sun is the physically manifested. It is the understood in the most radical way of light, energy, source, and all that and stuff. But the black sun would be more so of the understanding of the prima materia of what is the potential of manifestation that already exists within the unconscious. The sun is the conscious, and the black sun is the unconscious. So, but it also has, like dark matter, as we've been coining it in modern day science, it has its own emanation in that sort of sense. So that emanation still occurs, right? That emanation is primordial too. And you can even say that that gives way. That's why there's a lot of ancient cultures, and that's why a lot of people have been depicting it now, that that Saturn was the original sun. It's so funny because I wasn't even trying. I was just listening to something else recently, just in my own pleasures and stuff. I even heard Robert Phoenix even say about Saturn being the original sun, and I was like, "There you go."
I'm about to go off. I have,
and Amanda, we actually covered a lot of this Saturn aspect when we talked about Saturn too. This is what gave me my notion towards it. Was just it's like hold on, I have a that I fucking wrote down just so I remember for that point. That the black sun is the source, and that is associated with the inferior aspect of the personality and the weakness that resides inside every strength, the evil in every good action, the darkness of night that follows the brightest of days, right? And it's the shadow of this and this of this sun, the shadow of this black sun lies, and it's the greater power, and it's the power of the totality of consciousness and unconsciousness, where that you have the sun, and it's only the power of the conscious. It's only the conscious visible, right? And then you could go into the next luminary, which would be the moon, right? Where that sun casts a shadow on the moon. And that also is a certain emanation. And it reminds me of the whole biblical allegory of Lucifer fallen from heaven, the fallen angels and everything. Because no matter what, this prominent domain, this prominent aspect is all the oversoul. This is that whole thing that we alluded to in a sort of way, is that this emanation of God, I'm going to put it in more so of this biblical literature in this sort of sense, just so we can really grasp this understanding, is that Lucifer comes from this unconscious conscious, that singularity dwelling place, and no matter what, like this is the original prima materia and stuff like that too, and it comes down, and now he separates in that sort of way, right? But he is the balance between union and disunion in that sort of way, and he sheds his own light, right? The morning star does not shed his own light, sheds its own light and has its own implication towards it, but so no matter what, still gets its emanation from the original source. So therefore he casts his own shadow, and this is how we can understand the realms of the different planetary spheres, which we're going to keep going into, but we're just talking about the sun right now. We're just talking about the sun.
All right, I'm about to go off. I've been trying to bite my tongue.
And that's funny. You said you're Mercury Pisces. I think you might be more of a Mercury Aries than Geo is, but go ahead.
Well, let me tell you something. I have Venus in Aries conjunct my MC.
Oh, nice.
All right, honey.
So we all three of us do.
Yeah. And I also have, so ironically enough, my fire, I have a lot of fire in me, but it was very muted until I had to activate it. So my Venus in Aries in 10th house conjunct my MC, or 9th house, depending on what house system you want to look at. activated through the roof. If you want to look at progressions, I actually just progressed into both sun and moon in Aries, like literally this week. I fucking feel it. I fucking love it. No one would know that I'm Mercury in Pisces unless I told them.
That's what I was saying. That's all. It's really. I'd say I was.
No one has ever been able to pinpoint it.
The impulsive Ram just wanting to charge into the and Geo just trotting along as a Taurus. Yeah, I got making my point across.
And that's the thing. And I'm literally like,
I'm watching the trigger.
Ram just
I'm triggering you on purpose.
My Aries heat has been insane. Okay, and this is tropical Aries heat. Okay, this is like mundane Aries heat. I love it. I'm here for it. But let me tell you something. My Mercury in Pisces, sorry, we're jumping into Mercury for a hot second. I was nonverbal as a kid. I actually had to go to speech therapy because I wouldn't speak. And the only way that I would actually be able to interpret anything is drawing or like making sounds or singing. So I didn't actually, yeah. And then it was only through like storytelling and like dancing that I would actually be able to express anything. So unhealthy coping mechanisms were basically, anyways, so we'll get to that with Mercury a whole other time. That's a different tale for another time. There's always more. I want to talk a little bit about what Gio was saying and expand upon it, but from a more individual perspective, because I want to talk a little bit about how our DNA has been tampered with, and that has a lot to do with the Black Sun agenda connected to Saturn and the realm of Saturn. However, I want to bring all of this information that Gio has just shared and bring it into our energetics, okay? So I'm also a Reiki master teacher, but I don't always talk about that because I don't practice Reiki at this moment in time, but I've spent an extensive time studying energetic anatomy, okay? And the chakra system we have is a lot more diverse than what a lot of people think. We have many energy centers that are also connected to different dimensions, and as well as the harmonics of the planets within our firmament, okay? So Saturn is traditionally and very much connected to our DNA, and that is very much connected to our root base energy chakra as humans. Now, if you go away from our physical meat suit and we go into our oversoul, this connects to the 10th chakra. So this is our ancestral existence before we even are born. So this is like what keeps us connected through DNA, through generations and generations and generations. And then once we are born into the physical, root chakra, all right? That's our DNA, that's our coding. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the sun and the moon, they're connected with your third eye. However, we'll give the sun a little bit of a nod to also be connecting to the solar plexus energy center, kind of like our powerhouse, our drive, our willingness to go, the ego, right? Now, if we've watched movies and we've watched all the predictive programming in our society, there are plenty of movies that, allude to certain things and truths and realities that we have been desensitized to. And that's not only because, obviously, the earth and the world is a stage, and there's many things going on beneath the surface that we don't really know about, or a lot of people don't. That's why they listen to podcasts like this. But ultimately, underneath it all, too, what else are they fucking with that's tampering with our conscious awareness? Our food, our water, our air, the environment. Okay? So this goes deeper than just our physical density. This goes into our surroundings as well. As above, so below. That is the principle that Hermes shared with us on the Emerald Tablet within the Earth Plane, right? Found in Egypt. So this goes deeper. This goes deeper. And that's all I wanted to say. And another thing I wanted to mention too, when you were going off about timing, I no longer feel like we should just be looking at our tropical charts. When we actually pull up the example of the sun, I will also be showing my sidereal chart too.
We're constantly talking in all these different, dimensions of these different communities. It doesn't matter, your ayahuasca community, the truth or conspiracy, the astrology, no matter what, we're constantly always talking about traversing time and space in some sort of way, outer body experience, astral travel in some sort of sense, and they all somehow have a way of interconnecting in that sort of way. So no matter what, we should be starting to understand in these different topics of areas and this multidimensionality of, well, what the fuck is time and what is giving us this implication of time. And in the astrology, you tell an astrologer, well, what's giving us time and stuff like that. And a lot of them in the immediate reaction, I'm not saying that when you pick their brain, they'll go into this in this sort of way, but you don't get that immediately. They'll right away revert to Saturn. on a daily basis, the horary type and stuff like that will go into, the sun. But the sun will also get overly gratified in this exuberant, and it gets too lost in the hero's journey. Whereas this is my point, is that the sun has just as much to do with death, destruction, rebirth, and everything just as much as Pluto and Saturn does. And that's something that needs a little bit of a focus on, a little bit of touching on, because now when you get into the mythology, which is just something I want to touch up on, is when you get into the mythology of Apollo, which is very much so dandelions and rainbows when it comes to more so progressed Greek mythology and literature in that sort of sense. When you get into it, that Apollo, this whole god of light, the god of reason and music and everything, was very much so also the god of the divine madness. And he was the god of like these weird stupors and everything, and this whole incubation period for prophecy and being able to go into the deep realms with the oracles and stuff like that. Like, I mean, does that just not scream, hey, the sun, when it goes away from our observation of daylight? That's how I look at it. Is I'm like, he just was made this benefic thing in this sort of sense, but he's also associated with darkness and night. There was times in the mythologies, it was said that with the Oracle of Delphi, that he that they have these prolonged canatonic states, and would just in those canatonic states would traverse these, I don't know what you would call them, but would traverse these realms, give the Oracle of Delphi these sort of prophecies of what was to come. What it's funny is, because the sun can still tell us, as it traverses the night and goes into these deep depths of the underworld and these realms and stuff, it still can tell us that no matter what, it's still going to rise. It still can prophesize the rising and the implication of what that life it's going to bring to Earth and everything too. So can we not just look at it in that sort of sense too when it comes to mythology, and maybe this is something that we can learn rather than just looking at some glorified hero's journey story? And yes, it is an implication of ourself, and this is what I want to get to, but like, this is also the side of Apollo that people don't tell you about and stuff. Not only that, the deep stories of infidelities, of rape, of all those things. It wasn't just this divine thing, and the deep mistakes that were made, Trojan War, like all these things are things that have come into play when it comes to when you're talking about Apollo. And Apollo has this like real relationship with Persephone, who once again is of death, is of the underworld, is of with Hades and everything. And his son Orpheus, right? What do we know about the story of Orpheus? Orpheus is made famous because he went to go down to get Eurydice and play Hades a song, and it was supposed to not look back. And what did he do?
Parallel to Dante.
Back, and he went in there, but in the deeper movies and in the deeper understandings is apparently Orpheus saw what Apollo, the deeper workings of Apollo in the underworld, of what was really happening. And in that understanding is that it showed that there is powers within there when it comes to self. And it's something to not get focused on, but it is something to become of and be able to bring those things to the surface, just as the sun comes and rises over the surface. And this is what I mean about like this understanding, like this is what we're constantly trying to talk about in this sort of sense. But like, this is something I feel like in your basic journey of understanding astrology and even archetypes of astrology, this will get overlooked and will get missed. And this is telling you how to deal with or how to optimize the state of the shadow self, right? Of the inferior self, the self that still exists, the self that is still one with your conscious state, but it's your unconscious state as well. And it's showing us that there is power, there is a dwelling, there is an interaction with this state of mind and everything. And yes, we talk about this with, you know, once again, your ayahuasca journeys and this thing and astral travel and meditation and all that. But we always want to talk in archetypes of the waking archetypes. Well, why can't we talk about in these catatonic states of archetypes and understanding and visualizing more in this sense? Because I guarantee you, if you plant those within your subconscious, when you actually go into those states, you'll have more effectiveness in that sort of way. And this is something that I personally have been looking for in that way.
Yeah, it sounds like the unconscious expressions of these archetypes and seeing the dualistic nature of each thing, just like with me having Jupiter as a chart ruler and then looking into the, you know, into the story of Zeus. You know, he might have been the most benevolent god and the all-giving and all of that, but he also had sex with kids, a little boy, right, who he made Aquarius. Yeah. So like, and there's that pedophilia thing. And it's funny because in the age of, this age was ruled by Jupiter with Pisces traditionally, and you have a lot of that, you know. And even when you go back to ancient Greece, you know, I mean, the high elite were given, you know, the gift of a little boy, and that's a very Jupiterian. So you could see the underworld expression, and that's the way I see it, right? And that's the way that you would use, say, some sort of mythology, and that's the beauty of using the mythology instead of using the cookie cutter. Go get your astrology cookbook, you know, a 12 letter alphabet type of stuff when you're reading about this. And it's just that black and white, where yet the ins and outs and the more colorful, rainbowish, more expressive way of seeing all the mythologies and archetypes. That's the way I would see it. And so all in simple terms, my Mercury Taurus just wants to take this and say, that what you're describing as, say, the black sun, which I think is just more Saturnian in itself. But if you're going to talk about the unconscious sun, is what you're describing as, and what you could see with the Apollo story and all of that, is that shadow self, that shadow quality of the expression of that archetype. And most people just want to see the hero and the journey. Like, no one wants to go and see, like, off the top of my head, when you Batman or any of these like characters, like they had to maybe go through these trials and tribulations, or be or someone who's an anti-hero. You know who's a good expression of and I'm going to be so predictable. My tattoo, right? Vegeta was someone who was an expression of the lower self, of the like more primal me, the sun expression of I'm all about me and I want to win and I want to conquer everything. And that's a very Leo, like, well, what about me? And I'm going to be the best and this and that. And then he evolves into this more enlightened version of himself later on and goes through that scorpionic underworld transformation and ends up having a family and being Goku's boy and this and that. And that's just me, one of my animes. And I could say that that's part of the story, right? So it's that unconscious version of that archetype. And if you go into that, what you're saying is you're going to find a lot more. You're going to uncover a lot more if you're not afraid to go look at that inverted aspect of that, whether it's the sun or whatever else is playing out in the charts. So go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting here? I'm listening to your reflections and the examples that you have used, piecing together different myths and stories from just different, all over the place. And what I'm hearing in between the lines is, collectively, we as a human race have Stockholm syndrome with the sun. And we have been led to believe we cannot survive without this all-powerful sun. We will not live without it. Right. And we have been programmed so deep within our DNA that this is it. This is how we exist, and there's no other way. When really we have been so heavily cut off from so much of our divinity and connection to God source, where of course we have no idea. It's really, really, really underneath it all. We're just looking at the surface.
Ironically, too, going into, if we were going to talk about the age of Aquarius, the opposite sign of Aquarius being Leo and being the sun, is, I think, finding the balance of knowing your sun, but knowing all aspects of it, or having that Leo energy and almost cleansing it. So then you can then balance out the Aquarian energies that are going to need to be worked on for the next 2,000 years. So the way to place yourself into this next age is to heal that masculine and to heal the sun, but you're not going to know it unless you know the unconscious or inverted, perversions of the sign or of the symbol and that archetype. So, and that's the good thing about doing that. And like it's funny, you look at camps and you see conspiracy, or you see spirituality, or even astrology, and you see this group is emphasizing the light and this group is emphasizing the dark. And you never have just those, the very indifferent people who are just saying, I'm just going to, it's hermetic. You want to look at it hermetically and say, I'm going to go up and I'm going to go below, and I'm going to see everything in a full 360. So then I could fully integrate these aspects to myself. And it's funny because as we're saying this now too, what's coming up in my head is this is almost like in that book, Archetypal Universe. This, say what Gio, what you were trying to describe with Apollo, that's a very Sun-Pluto kind of expression in the story. So it's also like how you can use the other planetary archetypes to then integrate into the mythology. Then how can you work with it? Like what is the Plutonic version of this story, and how can I use it to transmute that solar energy and that myth, and the way I read this and how this certain character deals with this, or what he goes through, or what she goes through, or what they go through. And you can learn something from it more on the unconscious, symbolic, and allegorical level of the mind, and then you can use it to integrate. I don't know how many times I've watched things or have read things that are more story-based and not more just a logical information cookbook stuff. And you learn so much more by seeing it that way and being open-minded to it without being on either of the extremes and taking the narrow path while observing all of these things, especially astrology.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's the point of knowing all this is, and having this sort of awareness, is to be able to address what needs to be addressed, and understanding that it is a part of our reality. It may not be physical reality, as we're constantly being given and depicted in that sort of sense. Oh, my mic just flopped on me. But that's exactly what's happening is that we're trying to be of knowing that there's a path of integrating the shadow through awareness, and of what lies beneath of our willful light, and what we consider to be prana in that sort of sense, and that we need to be engaging with the problematic figure of our inferior self. It's your determination, your wellness, and your creative strengths. And those things have polar sides to them in a sort of sense, right? Which would be the polar sun. And those need addressing and need more of a focal light on too, because those are more unconscious things. Those are more unconscious things that are not necessarily inferior. They have a driven point to them. They have a powerful source to them in a sort of sense. So, and if you don't accept this aspect of you, then you're liable to become unconsciously, consumed by this, or by the lack of this immediate control of this yourself that no matter what you do in the conscious realms, this unconscious aspect of you can still dictate things. And I'm not saying this in the sort of fear aspect either. I'm not saying that this is something that's got to get you so worried about this dark, deep hidden side of you. It's just that with the light, there is darkness. And this darkness has an emanation too. And this darkness and its emanation shines bright. And there's the shadow upon yourself. And sometimes we may perceive that shadow itself as being us. And when we perceive that as being us, we act upon that, vote upon that, we, all those sort of things upon that shadow. But we have to understand that there is a grander shadow and there also is a greater light. And that greater light it's like, oh man, what's the saying? Hold on. Oh, what's the saying? It's understanding that there's the devil within you. Right. And this is not a dark concept coming from a previous Christian. Like, this is not a dark concept. Hold on, let's see.
No, it's not. Well, while you're looking for it all, and another way of I've heard of seeing all of this, and even the Jesus story and all of that, is Jesus is both Jupiter and Saturn, because Jesus is consciousness, and consciousness is expressed both in the dual nature of light and dark. So you could see it as, the enlightening creative purpose that you have, and the joy and the vitality that you bring in the sun and all of that. But then you also have and that's why I like, as much as you're bringing this as a dark sun type of thing, I still see it as, my brain just keeps going to Saturnian to not muddy the waters, because I see it as the opposite side would be to regulate your solar energy. You need to regulate yourself within the earth realm, which would be Saturnian. You need to do these Saturnian things, which is the darkness, which is the things that you don't want to look at. That between Saturn and Pluto, you need those malefics in your life. So the sun then can, you want to use your solar energy to shine on those things. And when you shine on those things, then you're able to then express more of your solar energy and solar light, but it could get entrapped within the Saturnian and Plutonic realms, or even in any of the other planets. I mean, that's the beauty of this area of this conversation, is you can look at any one of your chart placements and see that shadow part, the part that needs to go down into Hades, or needs to go through a Saturnian ringer, like a Venus in Aries, right? It's detriment or it's fall, right? It's fall. So like you need to be put through the ringer of, like, it's not always what you want, but the shadow self, or the hate, the part of you could write an allegory about your Venusian character that you have, and how it needs to go down into hell to witness all the dark sides of sexuality and relationship type of thing. And you could write a whole story. And that's the beauty of how these people did this. That's part of the wonder.
Good point, though, because that's what I mean. Like, it's about that you can confuse your lust with love. Right. That's in a sort of sense that it's like your lust, even though this is this also, it's this side of this Vesuvius energy. Right. And love is of the same quality in that sort of sense. It's in the same category, but there is an influx of this energy in a sort of sense where it becomes more of a dominance, and it's a lust and everything in that sort of sense. But how can you address it? You're only going to address it with some sort of awareness to it, right? And you need to differentiate what is love in a good, healthy balance, and what is lust, and what is going to pollute something in a sort of sense.
Yeah, and after you get that up, I think we should start doing we should show everyone our start doing the charts too, so we can give our own personal allegorical, our own little allegories. And lastly, before you read it, another thing now that we're talking about it, the way I see it too is the sun is the thing that's shining all of this light or energy or expression out. So the sun's the character, and then it has the Saturnian aspect, the Venusian aspect, the Martian aspect, everything, and everything gets funneled through the solar expression of self. So if you don't know self completely, you don't have a proper filter for the planets or planetary energies to then funnel through and that's when you could figure out, is it a lower Venusian energy or is it a higher Venusian? Is it a lower Martian energy? Is it this? But the sun is the thing, is the projector that's saying, okay, this is how it's going to be expressed though. Amanda?
I have an idea.
Okay.
I have an idea because I'm hearing everything that you're saying, and once again reading in between the lines. I'm going to do a little experiment. I want each of us to look at exactly what is opposing the sun in our charts to see if that at all reflects any of our unconscious, subconscious.
Currently or natally?
Natally.
Mine's easy.
I mean, looking at mine, my sun, moon, and Saturn are all opposing Chiron in Leo in my second house or first house, depending on what system you're looking at. So for me, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I resonate big time. And so that's why I was like, I'm listening to everything you're saying and I'm thinking of that as a human on this earth plane, having these experiences, properly understanding my sun from an unconscious perspective, from a darker perspective. And if you were to literally flip it upside down or look at the opposing energy, I was like, this could be something. So let's play with that.
Let's do it. Gio, get that.
Yeah, I got it right here. So, oh wait, I tried something different. Okay, hold on. I got it right here.
Let's try this again.
It did it out of order. I thought I tried something. So anyway, so this is something to overcoat that is look at Adam and Moses and others. They sought in themselves what was in man and have revealed it, and all Kabbalistic arts, and they knew nothing alien to man, neither from the devil nor from spirits.
Yeah.
Now, wait. I mean, I haven't really necessarily figured out that part of Zoom, but derived their knowledge from the light of nature. This they nurtured in themselves. It comes from nature, which contains its manner of activity within itself.
That's really interesting.
This is the last. Oh, wait. Oh, last part of it. It is active during sleep, and hence things must be used when dormant and not awake. Sleep is waking from such arts, for things have a spirit which is active for them in sleep.
In the unconscious.
Yep.
Yes. Wait, I thought that was... Sorry, hold on.
I have to sit with that.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. I thought there was something else here.
There's always more to it.
But anyway, but the point is that this is once again in more simple terms that everybody can understand. It's the importance of shadow work, of not being shied away from it, not being uncomfortable with it, not thinking that you have already overcome your shadow work and all that stuff. Like, you're talking to somebody who constantly on the day to day realizes that, holy shit, I need to just work with shadow work. But it doesn't mean that I have to sit in this dark realm of bullshit and evil and all. It's not that. I'm trying to just shed a new light on that. I'm trying to shed a light on the fact of, like, ready, I'm going to go into that George's Batalis, right? That shit that I presented to you, Ray, which was absolutely obnoxious about the sun and the black sun.
It was just, I immediately saw it as what the conspiracy, hardcore conspiracy theorists do to things, where they invert some sort of
it got crazy
good principle and all. Yeah, no, they just flipped it. Like, it was like, it's like as if it's just the Saturnian. It's like the Saturnian camp when said, "Nope, sun's the bad guy. We're the good guy."
Yeah, like
the
that's
satanic,
what I mean.
Satanic clan going. Yeah, it's the Christians that are actually the bad. They do this, and that's what that guy did.
Right away, demonization. But no, I think we should find a hermetic balance in a sort of sense, and we should be able to take and extract valuable knowledge where it's due. And that's what I saw when it came to that, was this proposition. I'm not going to give any weight to anything else that was said in that sort of sense, but it's the fact that it's like the sun, this let's represent the sun as being the mouth in a sort of sense, that the mouth is a projectile, right? In a sort of sense, it projects voice, which is the word, which creates worlds, which function that's going on in a sort of sense. I know people are going to be like, oh, well, that's Taurus, and oh, well, that's mercurial in a sort of sense. I get it, but that's what it's doing. But the mouth also consumes, just as what's projected is being consumed for production of life, right? But also in that consumption point, there is a process of which it's excreted and reintroduced back into the cycle. That's where you get the toroidal field, right? So it's the mouth and the fucking anus. It's the mouth and it's the anus in that sort of sense. This is where I understood this. And when you look at the sun glyph in astrology, what is it? It's a circle with a black dot in the center. It's almost like you're looking at the toroidal field from the top.
Yep.
And it's also showing you that pulse outward.
Perturbation, right? From the center.
The perturbation from the center, right? And that center is represented by some dark center, which has its own energy, which is not necessarily in a scientific sense. Yeah, you could try to get somebody who's going to be scientific about it in that sort of sense, but they always are going to get it wrong in mainstream science and stuff, that it's perturbating outwards. It's the same way where the heart is the pulse, right? The sun is ruled by Leo. That's my point when I'm trying to get to that, is that it's showing that no matter what, when you're talking about life and vitality and the ego, and you're talking about all these things that have to do with Leo, the sun, the fifth house, all those things, right? You still have to, no matter what, talk about, yes, of course, the 11th house stuff. Yes, the Aquarian type stuff. Yes, you're going to have to talk about, more of the opposition to that. But you also have to talk about death. You also have to talk about life through death. You also have to talk about understanding the hidden, understanding the deeper, dark depths of yourself, of what could be manifested, right? The powerful willfulness that is so, like, if you were to exonerated on a social scale and stuff like that, that people will be like, are you fucking nuts? Doesn't mean that there's no truth to it. There is some sort of, it's your truth, but it does not mean that your truth is going to be widely accepted or harmonious for nature. So therefore, it's like, judge what the fuck you think that you're doing or thinking or saying is really true. Like, you have to, like, come to an occurrence with it. You have to be balanced with it. Like, this is what I mean. It's like, but how much of us really focus our awareness on the deeper, darker parts of ourselves? How many of us truly? And if you say you do, you're lying. You're lying.
I would
You're
say,
lying. You're Leo.
if I were to, like, give a, like, random statistic, I literally would say, like, maybe 3% of the world actually cares to go deep into their personal shadow work and do the accountability work and the integration work and the transmuting of the dense, stagnant energies that exist within their being kind of work. A lot of people don't even realize that they need to do the work in the first place because they're so stuck in their ego. They're trapped in their solar plexus egoic energy, unable to tap into the heart energy because the heart energy has been so blocked collectively for so long. Now, you mentioned the sun being ruled by Leo, or vice versa, my bad. But Leo is also connected to the heart, to the cardiovascular system, for our ability to be alive. So all of these things are connected to our literal livelihood. And another thing about looking at the chart, and I like that you put together the perspective of the sun looking like a literal toroidal field. When you look at, especially in the tropical realm of things, any natal chart, you're looking at it from the perspective of being within the firmament, within the dome. And all of the celestial bodies and lights are transiting within that dome, within that firmament. We're not looking at it from the sun-based perspective. So I just thought that was another really interesting thing that not a lot of astrologers would even ever want to acknowledge or even touch upon. They won't accept it. I
found one Taurus field astrologer. I got one. You're the, I guess, well, because I think we're all on that same frequency, but only one person has talked about the firmament in that way besides like what, Ptolemy?
Well, but Ptolemy is the one that created the horoscope in general. He's the one that started.
Well, a lot of this is Ptolemaic understanding.
It's all Ptolemaic from Ptolemaic.
But keeping the firmament in the talks, I've heard a lot of even like Hellenistic astrologers kind of talk shit about that part of Ptolemy's approach to astrology, or using the firmament and all that, using the stationary Earth.
Hellenistic astrologers actually use a completely different model. Some of them will explore geocentric, and it's interesting because when you look at that model, if you switch it over on astro.com, all of a sudden there's a clip for your Earth sign as well. And your Earth sign is literally in complete basic opposition to your sun sign. That's another very interesting perspective to look at too, but I don't really dabble too much into that because for many reasons.
Well, let me give you one more thing when it comes to that whole inversion aspect, right?
Yeah.
It's like we have this whole fucking thing where we're so like on the firmament standpoint, right? Where we have this whole thing that we're so against that there's this possible firmament, and whatever way that you want to say it, though, right? Above. But we're going to deny that there's a firmament below. We're only able to drill so far below, 8 miles, and that's it. After that, it's a density that cannot pierce the strongest of drills, diamond cut.
That's why realm Earth makes most sense. That's all. It's like we're in it's a frequency band.
Yeah.
Or a band of frequency. It's like we are like how the human ear, when I do audio engineering, and we can only hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 kilohertz.
Exactly.
Or and
it's literally
same thing with this. Like we can't.
Our DNA has been dumbed down. We can't go anywhere.
That's what I mean. You need to be able to dwell in these areas and see these limits. You have to know these limits. And when I say no, I don't mean just I know about them.
Awareness.
I mean, yes, I mean come into a resonance with them and understand them in this certain sort of sense, and vibrationally be able to flow within and without them and stuff. And this is where you understand the flow of frequencies, and this is why people are able to start learning how to use the energetic fields and learn how to adapt their DNA and learn how to use the certain faculties of their own pure original technology to get into these certain sort of states and be able to tap into and then do things beyond these certain quantum levels, because that's the problem. We're thinking about it on just a modern scientific quantum level, which it defies that. It defies that. This is why we are considered the spiritual. This is why we're considered divine. This is why we are manifested in that way. But people have such a hard time believing that. And I think even when they're going in these areas of subject, they still have a hard time accepting it. And all because of the fact that they're so programmed and used to the painted picture, that we need to paint a different picture and let them understand through which they have understood things before. You have to paint them in that same thing. If people are understanding it through a mosaic, paint it through a mosaic.
Right. Well, I think so. We're at 2 hours, so let's hit the charts. Amanda, since you had mentioned that you wanted to jump into your concept of how you wanted to look at the chart, why don't you start?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm literally just going to touch upon a couple different things here, give you a quick little tour. Yeah, I want to show you my tropical natal. I'll give a quick glimpse of the opposing energy if we want to look at the unconscious patterns. And then I also have my true sidereal chart up here as well, too, to look at an alternative perspective of my sun sign. So this is me. Hi, hey, hello. I've added aspects to the lunar nodes. I haven't added any other additional asteroids just to keep things a little simpler for our viewers. However, I do like adding part of fortune, so I threw that in there too. This is me. Hi. Here's my sun. There it is right there. It's super close to my moon. Pretty much conjunct. The only thing that makes them a little different is the fact that in my tropical chart, if we're looking at equal house, my sun is in Pisces in the 8th, my moon is in Aquarius in the 7th. Yep, they're conjunct. That's really interesting. Now it's the moon and Saturn conjunction that really takes the cake for me here, especially when in combination with my sun and my moon. I'm going to be honest with you, nobody knows me better than myself, and that will always be the case because of that. Having a Sun and Mercury combination in my 8th house, it's been a blessing and a challenge for many reasons, because for the life of me, it has taken me way more effort than I want to admit to be understood and validated. And I will be honest with you, when I went back to that story of remembering when astrology kind of fell into my life, I remember literally, I'm not even kidding or sugarcoating it with you guys. That was literally the beginning of me finally feeling seen, heard, and recognized, and like I actually had a purpose in this world. I literally did not see me existing past the age of 30. So the fact that I'm here at 30, speaking with experience, and I'm like, wow, I actually made it. Here I am, is pretty awesome. So, and again, that's a very 8th house thing to say, being very, very real about the very in-depth things that happen beyond the veil. And that's the thing. I'm very good at playing a really good part, and I always have been a very good actress throughout my life, where the world would be convinced that everything is okay, but I'm having an existential crisis. And that's because of my moon and Saturn being conjunct right next to my sun. Sometimes I don't even realize what's happening, and it's happening around me. And people are like, dude, there's literally an earthquake around you. Are you okay? Everything's great. High five, gold star, awesome possum. Now, also having my sun placement being in Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, the crone, the old wise wizard. I've always been older than I seem. Like energetically, I feel like I'm timeless, but physically I'm 30. Here I am. But since I was a kid, I could not connect with people my age. I actually remember being specifically turned off by hanging out with kids my age because I thought they were immature. And I was like, I don't have time for this stupid shit. I was asking existential life questions by the age of like 6. And it's funny because I grew up Roman Catholic, old school Italian family, hello, did all the sacraments up until marriage. But I remember I would ask questions to my priest, and he literally would go to my religion teacher and be like, she's onto something, keep her close by. Like she's got a special kind of faith that I don't know how to pinpoint. But he thought that I was asking him questions because I was into what was happening with the church, but I was questioning him because I was like, I think there's more to it, but you're not leading it on. So again, moon in Aquarius, conjunct Saturn, just like questioning everything. Now, let's get a little deeper here. Let's look at a couple of aspects because we said we would. All right. So first and foremost, I love this trine with my sun. I have my sun trine, my Mars and Cancer in 12th house placement. It's made me very naturally in tune with my surroundings from a young age. Again, I've had intuitive experiences where I've just been able to tap into a certain emotion or frequency, or even just know where to physically put a hand on someone. And I just couldn't explain it with words. I just knew. This is also where I say that movement and music and dance and medicine and creativity as a whole, if I didn't have those things in my life from when I was 4, again, one of the really pivotal things that keep me here today and keep me strong and keep me focused. Because when I stopped moving and stopped dancing and stopped using music, because water signs are very connected to art and feminine expression and literally emotion. I literally had no method of expressing my water. And what happened is I was so heavy and I was so sick. And I was almost 200 pounds at one point in my life because I could not digest or process the water and the emotions that I was carrying from well, my family first and foremost, but also just like my friends. I used to be the friend that would spend hours and hours and hours on the phone. Again, 8th house sun, 12th house Mars, this is trine, because I cared so much. But then I was like, why am I so exhausted after this 3-hour phone call listening to my friend talk about her problems? Oh, didn't understand that concept, because I need time to recharge my batteries, of course. Now, another way to look at my sun in combination with my moon and Saturn conjunction, they're all square to good old Pluto in Scorpio in my 4th house. Yes, and this is where I come to the very obvious conversation here. If you know how to look at a chart, you can see that I have all kinds of family karma, all kinds of activations happening within my ancestry, especially the inheritance aspect of it. Lots of cycle breaking, lots of doing things differently. And yeah, I could go deeper because there's a whole ass T-square that forms here with my sun and moon and Saturn conjunction, but that's more specific to my moon and Saturn conjunction. Now, if we want to look at the more unconscious expression of what's happening here, if we want to play with everything that Geo was exploring with the black sun, and we want to take a look at within the firmament, within the 3D matrix of things, the exact opposition here, technically, I mean, no, this is not enough of an opposition here. Actually, they're not opposing at all. It would be basically 2 degrees Virgo here. And it's really interesting because for the longest time, all things 2nd house would cause me insane amounts of anxiety. Anything that had to do with anything tangible, anything materialistic, anything finances, anything career, anything job, anything that had to do with taking care of my basic needs would cause me crippling anxiety. And if Virgo is in its lowest expression, what does it do? Make you an anxious box of everything. So yeah, anxiety and my overall mental health for the longest time ruled me. I let life rule me and have control over me, and my unconscious factors literally take over my ability to run my life. And for a very long time, I was a doormat.
Can I interject real quick?
Please do.
So the Lord of your 2nd house, which is Mercury, is quincunx to Chiron and Leo, which would be the healing of, the self or self-expression and all of that. And on top of that, you do have it square Pluto as well, the Chiron with the T square, if you want to call that a T square. Your Chiron's big. That's like a lot of your because that's tied from your 1st house to your 4th house, which is self-expression, and then your inner security and family. So you have that square going on top of it opposing, and your chart ruler, which is the moon, is conjunct Saturn. So in yourself, you're going to have a Saturnian expression. Saturn also rules older people. So that's why you tend to see the immaturity in the younger. And all of that, because you embody it in your ascendant and all of that. So between your 1st house stuff connecting to your 4th and that T square and all of that, you're the Lord of your 2nd being quincunx to Chiron, giving it that awkward, out of place type of like, oh my God, I have anxiety, thinking of 2nd house stuff. And I relate to that 2nd house stuff because I have Saturn there. But anyway, so I just needed to point that out. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Of course, because it's one thing when you yourself are looking at your chart and looking at your own timing, but again, this is a mirror expression of a soul, and every astrologer will have something else that they're going to pick up on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so thank you for adding that little tidbit there. I'm going to briefly stop my share and just switch over my screens, and I'll quickly show you.
Wait, real quick. It's funny though. If you look at it, how would you address that giant square that with?
Are you talking about my cardinal grand square, the one that you can't stop staring at because it's...
Yeah, I can't stop staring at it. Not only that, the Star of David pattern that's in your chart.
Oh yeah, it's exactly. The second I started looking into the complexities of who I am and what I'm doing here, I was like, okay, I have to help other people figure out their life too, because clearly...
Wait, what was it again? It was Venus...
Hold on, let's go back. I'm just gonna
Venus.
Real quick, I know. I knew you guys were gonna go off.
Oh, it's Venus, Mars.
Let's hold on.
Jupiter.
Hold the phone. Hold the phone.
What the hell was it?
Oh, it's fun. Ready? Let's bring it back.
I just started seeing the Star of David with your trines.
Bring it back. Okay, sorry, yes. I'm bringing back old school house music right now.
Mars, Jupiter.
All conjunct my angles, honey. Neptune. All conjunct my angles.
Wait, then
specifically my MCIC.
You see the two opposing trines too? with, I think it's your midheaven or Venus. It might be both.
And do we see this fun yod here? This really fun yod hanging out with the apex being Chiron? Yeah. I've had a lot of fun. And again, I've become extremely resilient. And again, I'm very extremely good.
Yeah, a lot of self and other energy, a lot of self and family energy. You know, seems like you're trying to develop your inner authority on all of this stuff, you know, becoming your own inner authority. Yeah.
That's why I dance through life, folks.
Yeah, the whole artistic thing, you know, healing through the artistic expression would be the Leo Chiron. You know, Geo
I see. I also
being a comedian would be the same type of thing, right?
So. Yeah, I see I see a little bit of the projection, but also the drawing from of even like of the 11th house area, but even more of the air element in your chart too, like the whole Gemini-ish. Like you're playing that role though, like you're pushing that need for it, and like that's doing the work and expanding upon it as well too. I mean, that's part of your trying too.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Gemini in the equal house system would be the lord of the Mercury would be the lord of the 12th too, which is family.
I notice I'm a big proponent of Gemini. So I'm a big lover of mutable people. No, not mutable air.
Mutable air is so fun. And it's funny because it's so natural for me to have that mutable air. And I've always just been super friendly. I've always just known a lot of people, easily, effortlessly able to connect, network, bring connections, bring people together. I'm really good at throwing events and parties. Oh my gosh. You know what I mean? It's just always came natural to me. I've always been really good with music, you know, arts, multitasking, all these different things, la. But then getting into my North Node energy, guys, has not been easy. It's meant getting out of the groupthink and allowing myself to be fucking bold. And again, that North Node is trine to my Chiron in Leo in second house, as well as my MC. So once that activation started taking place, and again, it started with me using my voice again, not just speaking truth, but also using my singing voice, bringing my movement back. Honestly, this work and these podcasts has been helping me too.
Yeah, you know astrology is a big mandala, because then as you say that, the ruler of your North Node's Jupiter, which is in the third house of communication. So
that's what I mean. If you can see your astrology chart, let's just start at that. If you could see your astrology chart in this way, right, and see the geometric patterns and understand what they mean in that sort of sense, and even understand them on more of a frequency base, but then if you could start making them 3D in your mind.
Quite literally, yes. It's a frequency thing. Boom.
Which way is the inversion? I'm big. My word of the day is inversion. Thank you, Ray.
I knew that once I got solar anus in my message.
Yeah. You got me right away.
I knew it.
Fun. Right. I knew you guys were gonna have fun with this one. Yeah. Okay. Hold on a second. Hold on. I wanted to show y'all the true sidereal. I'm gonna be super quick. I promise. Okay. So. By the way, you guys are not doing it right if you don't include a fucus in your zodiac discussion eventually when you get there, and I will be there, by the way. This
interests me.
Yes. So of course I have to dabble into this for a hot second, guys. Come on.
I like the spatial energy.
Oh, hold on. My Shih Tzu is coming in here. My familiar. Get over here, Jojo. Come here, baby. Good boy. Okay, so basically, this is myself away from all the constructs of time that have been created by man and everything within this firmament. So this is when you look at things away from all the distortions that have taken place to keep us dense, to keep us out of our cycles, okay? So instantly, you can see that all my planets are in a similar place, but they're in different signs. And that's because we're looking at the constellations with their true dignity and also away from their... I no longer look at the zodiac as the zodiac anymore. They are now their authentic constellations. So even the archetype of what you look at when you look at the sun suddenly being in Aquarius and the moon and Saturn being conjunct in Capricorn, that archetypal understanding shifts. And again, we'll look at the mirrors and the inversions of the zodiac when we get to the next. I'm going to be with you guys for a long time. Gio, you're right. I'm going to have to keep. I told you,
guys. Don't get sick of me now. I fixed you into my fixed energy. You're fixed now.
Trine unifier. We need the feminine.
Told you.
Yes.
We got a lot to cover.
We got a lot to cover. Oh my God,
like,
we're going to be here for so long.
Listen. Let's just put it this way. This is the greatest podcast of all time.
It really is.
Numbers don't mean shit, right? This is the
quality
greatest podcast
over quantity.
Of all time. And what's being presented here is going to be so fucking eminent and valuable if you would listen to it. And guess what? If you don't, I don't give a fuck because it's still valuable. That's what it is.
So much value.
So, greatest 1,000%. Podcast of all time. We have so much shit to discuss here, first of all. And like and subscribe if you haven't already, if you've gotten to this point. But anyway.
I think you should. Absolutely. Okay, anyway, so we're just quickly looking at the inversion of looking at what's actually going on here away from all the stuff keeping us away from our density. And all of a sudden, my sun is in a completely different sign with a completely different archetype, and everything has shifted. All of a sudden, I have a high contrast drum and bass song stuck in my head. Everything's different. Okay, anyways, I'll stop. So again, all of a sudden, my trine with my sun and Mars is now a trine with my sun and Mars in air signs. Oh, that expresses itself a little bit differently, doesn't it? And all of a sudden, my square with Pluto's in Libra. Huh, that's a little different. All right, and so on and so forth. I just wanted to just give you guys a quick little glimpse. I know that's just a little dip in the pond.
Yeah, just adding another layer up to the mandala. What it all is, right?
Absolutely.
Gotta follow.
All right, who's next
for the layers?
I'll take it. I'll take the throne here for a little run through on.
Take us for a ride.
Mine's complicated yet easy, I think. You can kind of see everything very much on the surface with me.
Zoom in a little bit.
Yeah. Zoom in a little. Yeah, you've added asteroids as well.
So I have. Yeah. This is the way I do see. This is the here. So real quick, let me do desktop share. Does this help? Because I can't zoom in.
Yeah.
Are you sure you can see it? Yeah,
I can see it.
Okay,
so that's why.
What? Okay. Did you not have your thing?
I'm good. All right.
Good. So, all right, real off the bat, right? And it's funny because when we did the episode with Jackson and how it was emphasized in my chart, the Gemini Sun conjunct Pallas, which ended up being, that's why actually is what got me into I don't use every asteroid. I do have a little side piece on how amazing the asteroids can be, but that's not really a solar thing. But that is pretty incredible actually, because it was something to do with my Venus and my music. But yeah, so within my chart, you can immediately see and probably sense the Gemini in me for sure, especially if you've heard me get pretty excited on previous episodes, where when I start to have that quick this and that type of thing going on. Like I said, I thank God for the Mercury Taurus, because that complements I think it's an underlooked combination, having the speedy Aries Gemini with the Mercury Taurus. Johnny Depp, JFK, a lot of people that you wouldn't think as more of a Gemini because they're slower in thought and they want to articulate. But anyway, so the Sun conjunct Pallas in my chart, which I had written down because Pallas really isn't, I don't feel like, talked about a lot. So it got me into the asteroids because of how much it came through my solar expression of self, right? It gave me this whole other layer. And because it's conjunct my sun, it's literally within my conscious expression of self. It is in my vitality and all that. It feeds that sun. And when we know that when things are conjunct, we know that they're working in partisan together. They're working together, and it's one. They're one unit, right? They're compressing into one expression. So you take that Gemini, messenger, twins, duality, all of that archetype with Pallas, which is the fierce protector of truth, logic, and freedom. And when you have a strong Pallas in your chart, what it's going to do is it's going to create a warrior or crusader for a cause. And the nature of the cause fought for can often be found by examining what other energies are aspecting this. Because my sun only has one other real main aspect, this plays into my nodal story, right? Which is the communicating
North Node and
the
Aquarius,
Aquarian
yes.
energies. And to me, I saw it as oh, well, look at me. I get to be the lucky man who gets to be the water bearer through communication, someone who talks about truth, someone who stands up for truth and is a fierce warrior when it comes to vocalizing the Aquarian message, which is truth, which is the,
And it's interesting too, with the South Node in Leo in your 9th house, it's very natural for you to be very open and authoritative about your beliefs and narrow that focus down. So the challenge I can see how that challenge, but activation more or less, especially if you allow it to be, is bringing all of that conscious, modern, perception and perspective and making it tangible for the public, because the 3rd house is very much connected to more so the public, you know what I mean? And, your communities around you and technology and information. So that's really, really cool. I also noticed too, you have a lot of conjunctions, like a lot of things are conjunct. So you have a lot of like specific energies that are very like
compressed,
intense, because they're all activating each other. So it's cool to see just how many like sandwiches of energy you have throughout your chart, especially looking at your Capricorn Cancer opposing band you have going on there. Holy smokes.
That's what I was looking at. I'm looking at your like crazy ass when you bring in the asteroids to it too. Is the stellium that you have in Cancer opposed to everything in Capricorn?
What I was curious about,
and in the 8th house too.
In the 8th house too. And earlier on too, I remember, Ray, you were mentioning your moon and Chiron were in Cancer. And I've met quite a few Chiron moon folks, and they have a lot going on in their heart spaces, man, especially when it comes to healing that more feminine maternal rune. So seeing that in the 8th house is really interesting.
Yeah, I live with my mother still. And I'm a big, when we moved down to Florida, I am a big part of her therapeutic area, her life. I am very much almost healing the mother principle in myself by healing my own mother.
Beautiful.
Being the nurturing, learning to be the nurturing type by allowing my mom to do that when she is all Aquarius, Sun Aquarius, Moon Aquarius, Mercury Aquarius, Venus Aquarius, Mars Taurus, Jupiter Aquarius. Like she is all Aquarius. So she has no water in her chart, literally. Wow. And so it's so funny. And we could do that's a whole other episode. My parental chart, like my parents, my father literally is a 1 degree Sagittarius with Neptune conjunct his ascendant. And he has basically the same house structures as I do. But yeah, that's that. And it's funny because you look at all of that and that is the big,
you can't make this shit up. Family ancestry is so cool.
All right. So that's where me and you share that thing too. You were saying family is a big thing. Well, I have Mars in the 4th house. So I'm a protector of the family, protector of home, protector of where I live. On top of that, I have all the 8th house Cancer stuff. So a lot of healing and a lot of, psychological stuff going on there.
And you've got Vertex in Cancer too, right? 1 degree orb conjunct Chiron there. So just like enhances that
and that's all sitting on Sirius too.
Yeah.
So, in which, because you give the fixed stars a 2 degree orb, that's sitting on Sirius, so is Jupiter. So it's funny that is a PowerPoint in my chart. And when you look at, there's been graphs I looked at, and that is basically the chart signature over anything else, because I think the beauty of the chart, going back to the solar stuff, is it blessed me with a light-hearted ascendant and sun. So it allowed.
Yeah, you really did.
I lucked out with that. Wow. So my chart ruler being conjunct my moon, which is Jupiter, Sagittarius. And then on top of that, the ability to communicate with others, right? To find with the sun in the 7th house, I'm looking to find my solar creative expression and conscious self through other people. I'm going to have to bounce things off my partnerships to say, hey, that's me and that's not me. And it's actually, some say it's a harder placement. I disagree, because it depends on what sign you have. If you have a 7th house sun in Capricorn, you're probably going to have a rough time, because that sturdy Capricornian, those types of people you're going to be dealing with, and that's going to be a harder thing to bounce off of. I have Gemini. So basically all I got to do is just talk shoot the shit with people, and just not, and with me having the Sagittarius rising, is easy. I'm going to be able to write. And then what that's, so let's get back into the story and the allegory here of my chart with my solar energy and all of that playing in with everything else is I'm looking to develop myself and my beliefs and the things and the way I see the world in the big picture through the communication with others and my partnerships and being able to communicate in more of a mundane and detailed level, a more Gemini level. And I'm going to find those deeper, the answers to those deeper questions by just exploring in the Gemini way. And then through that, we'll develop the Gemini sun. We'll develop my communication skills and my ways of thinking and my logic and my left brain stuff and all of that. So, and then on top of that, the beauty is that trines my North Node. So it's completely helping out my mission. So I've definitely been blessed, and I won't say cursed, but it's been more so it's like someone who likes to do a lot of puzzles, but they've been given a very, very difficult and emotionally heavy puzzle, but they love to do puzzles. And that's the way I see the way that my energy really it expresses itself. And let me add this too. When you're looking at your chart and you're looking at your house placement, and especially your solar, look at the house of your solar placement, your sun, and the original energy of that house. So my 7th house is a Libra house, right? So my sun is in the house of Libra, which is, by default the Libra house. I actually have a lot of Libra friends or people with Libra placements who actually end up playing a big part in my life. Geo might be a Virgo rising, but most of his first house is Libra. My buddy Steve and Laura, who has a Libra moon, who wanted to give me a job for the summer and calls me every day and this and that and checks up. Ann Walke, who is someone who's been a big supporter. I have this phone because of her and all that. The Libra energy, even though you say Gemini, you might think I might attract a lot of a Gemini energy or attract a lot of Saggy. I actually attract that area of life and that energy, which is Libran. And I've noticed, and that connecting to my 11th house of my networking, you could see it just all play out, and it's incredible. It's a mandala.
You're absolutely right, because with my son in my 8th house ruled by Scorpio, my boyfriend's a Scorpio. My best friend is a Scorpio. I love hanging out with Scorpios. And it's funny because Scorpio is the natural ruler of my 4th house, which is also family. So it's all really cool how it all just sort of intertwines within one another.
Yeah, I think that's really it. I mean, to add, just this is a little side thing I was saying before. So I had a band back 10 years ago, and I'm bringing it back in a way. I'm doing a lot of stuff with the project by myself, basically. But my Venus in Aries at 26 degrees is conjunct an asteroid called Moira, Moira, happened to be one of my song names from 10 years ago. And I had no clue that the existence of that.
Get out of here. I have chills running down my spine right now.
Moira was named by my vocalist at the time, who was a big guy. He had a family or something to do with the military, and he's a big political guy. He has Palace Square, his son, and he's all for political justice and all this other stuff. And the word Moira means destiny in Old English. And so he had written a song talking about going to war and coming back home to your loved ones. And so I'm sitting there, and I didn't realize that Moira, I had watched, I don't know who her name was. She was on the astrology podcast. She's really big with the asteroids. And she had her thing on and it said Moira. I'm like, no way. I'm like, let me go on astro.com or whatever, where I could do the asteroids, and let me check. And I happen to have Moira, the asteroid, conjunct Venus in the 5th house of artistic expression and arts, Venus being the artistic planet as well, in the sign of Aries. And I play metal, war music, Moira, the song about coming home from war. And we can get on that one a whole other but that to me, it's just like, that's all you need, man. Like you start looking at this stuff and you open your mind to the archetypal allegorical nature of your chart, and it ends up being absolutely wonderful. And it just changes you forever. You can, like you said, you can just never turn back.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gio, anything else to add? Because I mean, I think Amanda got her. She injected a lot of her stuff on there. Anything else?
No, the only thing I'm coming from an intuitive standpoint, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but when looking at it, like I'm just like more pattern recognized. It's just that like what you have in that 7th house, like that whole function going on, I feel like can can potentially, how do I say it, overshadow that whole 8th house second stellium thing that you have going on, where it's like, you know, in touch with the roots, like allowing the emotion to come in, allowing this sort of healing factor to come in, allowing the roots to play such a role in this facing and understanding, and like and like this whole, like, it's going to shake up your more Capricornian side of things, and allow, I mean, not to mention like the retrogrades that you have going on in the second house, like that's crazy to me. I'm like, I've never really, I guess I never really looked at your chart in this way, and like when I did, I'm just like, wow, like I had the time. That's why I've been sitting here just like so fixated on it, because I'm like, holy shit, like, yeah, she's right, like you got like these like major just like conjunctions everywhere. And it's like, but what keeps grabbing my attention, it keeps telling me to look at it in this sort of way, is like your 8th and second house is just lit up in this sort of sense, where I just see this like karmic desire to really uproot all of it's not, I don't know, dude, it's so crazy. I don't know, like I'm seeing it now, so I'm like, I don't know, it's like this uprootedness of like not anything that's going to be conventional, and I know you know that already, like it's not conventional to do things in the sort of manner that's going to be to your truth. Like it's going to be in a sort of way Neptunian. It's going to be Piscean in a sort of sense, but no matter what, it's connected back to the more rooted sense of that Cancerian water, and that's what's going to be expanded on and healed upon, and that's going to be your. And I mean, dude, yeah, what is that? Your part of fortune too in Capricorn.
Yep, conjunct I think that's Neptune or Uranus. Yeah,
like
Uranus.
It's disruptive. It's going to be disruptive, and I feel that it's going to be more disruptive in your family's life, not in a bad way, either. A disruptiveness in your family's life to be like, holy shit, Ray just fucking did that. And I'm like, dude, you got lucky, and it's gonna be like, no, I didn't. This is what I've been trying to tell you all along.
Right.
That's what I see. And that to me is fucking crazy, especially when you really hone into those fucking retrogrades of being like, oh yeah, it's always going to come back to me, reverting back to my second house, my worth, my value. And now I even see why you implement certain things more than your Mercury Taurus. Forget about your Mercury Taurus. Like now I really see why you really hone in and heavy on when it comes to us, and what we do is that value aspect of things. And I'm like, all right, respect.
And that Mercury Taurus is actually trine to that Uranus.
There you go.
And the Uranus rules the north.
That gives you the mental faculties, right?
And that sextiles Jupiter and the moon in Cancer. So this Mercury actually bridges. What there's a name for that. It's not a grand trine, but like a part. Rick Levine or someone else just said it the other day, where you have a sextile, and when you have a sextile, and then it's like this weird odd triangle,
a wedge.
I think
it's a wedge. It's a wedge.
Yeah.
So
I call it a wedge.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know if that's what he called it, but I like it regardless.
It's a right angle.
All right. Well, dude, that's see, another mandala experience for you, Amanda. If you have something else, I have one more thing to add, and then we're done with my chart. We can move on to Gio. I heard the breath.
I'll message you outside of this. I'll message you outside of this. I'm channeling something interesting right now, but it's more personal.
By the way, I mean, I could say this now because, you know, this is not going to be posted till after and stuff like that. I just got a birth chart reading for my girlfriend for her birthday through Amanda. So make sure we'll put her links below. go to that. As you can see, she's very multidimensional with it. Not your basic astrologer. Go to her. Just do it. I want to plug that real quick.
Nice plug.
Thank you. I appreciate that share, because I have made it a point to take my passion for helping others help themselves and being a mirror and take it to a different level. Because let's face it, like I've mentioned from the beginning, this is not so square peg round hole as society tries to make it out to be. So, clearly.
Yeah. I think she's gonna be happy with this. I need you to fucking lay into her too. Like, lay into her.
It'll be fun. It's my favorite thing to do.
So lastly, so we could get my chart off the screen here. So we got one more thing I realized is you had mentioned the Leo South Node and how that's such a natural thing for me. And Geo, in the same breath, also mentions that this can overshadow this. Well, the sun rules my South Node. And so it's in the, if you're using the modern, what do you call these again? The
not declination. They're like it's like deacons.
The deacons, but
the
right,
deacons.
Yeah, I thought they were called. Okay, so but that so it's in the solar decan of Leo, and it rules my 7th house sun. So it's I think naturally I'm going to be given Leo like people. My singer was a Leo. My grandfather's a Leo. A lot of good Leos in my family, but very karmic and very like, can overshadow my own inner work, where it seems like I'm like, you have these other people that come into my life and you have these belief systems and the higher learnings and things I'm bringing in and the knowledge and all that stuff. That's nodal energy. I don't need to work on that anymore. It is more of this because the ruler of my North Node being in the 2nd house, Geo saying the 2nd house being very important with the 8th and the 2nd axis. You could see that, the 7th house solar energy, it being a nodal, South nodal ruler, you could see that overshadow point. But I think that, and that would be really it. I mean, that's the irony of my chart. The only other thing you could say is that it's opposed my ascendant. But the
only thing I was going to say with what you said is, though, through that, the South Node and being a deacon of the sun and everything is that you can gain that sort of gnosis, that sort of wisdom and value and knowledge and that higher learning with your capacity of the sun through those different focal points of Leo archetype in a sort of sense.
Right.
And I'm not saying they could be real fucking, once again, they're Leos. I'm not trying to put it, a negative fact on Leos or anything and stuff like that. But, we all understand what the influx of Leo can do and stuff like that. But there's something to learn from that.
Right.
And we're talking about the sun, right? So why not? This is a reason.
100%.
Synchronicities.
Last but not least, Geo.
Oh God, here we go. Where are you? This is it. Is it good enough? Big enough?
I see a big giant triangle.
Oh yeah.
First thing I see, a big earth trine right there. Bow Grand Trine.
I have a yod somewhere in there.
I was gonna say it's sticking out, and it's I
always forget what the yod is.
The finger of God. It's basically 2 in conjunctions to an apex, and then the 2 planets or placements that are in conjunct form a sextile. Okay, I see 1 yod. Okay. I think it's pointing to your North Node, conjunct whatever asteroid that may be there.
Yes, it is the North Node.
The apex at the very base over here, we have Chiron on one side. And then I can't quite make out the other asteroid.
I'm pretty sure it's a Jupiter North Node, and I can't... What's the other point of the yod?
So it's literally like these 2 guys over here are sextile. There's Chiron over here. It's not forming a true sextile because it's not on here, but it's basically Chiron in the 11th, forming a sextile with whatever's over here in Gemini in the 9th. And then you see the 2 in conjunct kind of dotted lines pointing down to the North Node. Mm-hmm. That is a yod that I can see, but it's not like a complete yod because it doesn't show the sextile. But I see it as a yod.
Oh well, no. That's what it is. That's what it is. Now I remember.
It's there.
It's my midheaven Chiron and North Node. That's the yod.
There we go.
Right? No, wait, is it? I know there's a yacht in there.
It's somewhere there. Well, that's the first thing that I could see just by identifying the in conjunctions. But I've just seen this giant trine. Thing is, I'm not familiar with the system that you're using here. I typically just go right to Astro, and it's a little different. But I'm able to, because even some of the glyphs look a little different here. But I'm seeing that Earth trine. It's like all in water houses too. It's just like screaming at me right now, saying, "Look at me, meditate on me." Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into them just yet because I want to hear your guys' perspective since we're talking about the sun. But I have Sun trine Jupiter, as we could see, Sun trine Jupiter.
Sun square Chiron.
Sun square Chiron as well. Sun semi-square Mars. Or Ceci squared. Is that
Chiron squared the sun.
Square. Yeah. Chiron
looks like you have a square to Ceres too. I think that's Ceres beside Saturn there.
Yeah, Sun squared Ceres, trine Vesta and Pallas, and Sun trine the North Node.
Yeah, so like the same expression is that your karmic mission for your node is easily fed through the sun. So your solar energy is going to work very well with that Capricornian of that building something, right? And
your
it
solar,
seems like,
yes.
And that solar energy in the eighth, meaning the shared energy, shared resources, merging with other people and all of that is going to play a part in you building the foundation to a safe home and an inner security. That's the way I'd see the North Node and the sun playing out. And then on top of that, your spirituality, your beliefs, your unconscious with Jupiter is only just basically assisting in that. It's bringing benevolent energies to the people that you merge with, to the foundations you're trying to set. And of course, with the nodal thing, you're working from the South Node to the North Node. So you're not going to immediately have that Capricornian comfort and structure. The Jupiter and Sun are there to assist you into the building of that, considering it's all Earth.
And what's interesting here about having an Earth trine and all water houses, all of these houses are incredibly intuitive, but I'm really, really focusing here on looking at Jupiter in the decan of Mercury in the 12th house here, and how expanding on, this trine here and all of it being connected, that Jupiter in the 12th house there, again, not only is it incredibly spiritual, but the fact that it's in Virgo, and as well, your North Node being in the decan of Saturn in the 4th house, you're taking all of this magic that's taking place within these themes that are specific to this trine and creating tangible, practical value within them, especially as you expand forward. Now, I think it's really interesting that your South Node is basically conjunct your MC. Even though your MC is in Gemini, it's not very far off from where your South Node is in Cancer in your 10th. I think that's really interesting, and it's in the decan of your moon. So the presence that you currently have right now, especially in the public eye, I have reason to believe you're very comfortable with it. You don't mind so much showing up and speaking your truth and speaking these beliefs. Might it happen overnight? No. Might it happen within your closest circles at the beginning? Yeah. But eventually, look what's happening here. It's expanding. You have the shared resources. You have also the mindset, having the sun in Taurus in the 8th house, also the ability to see beyond the veil, allowing you to do what you need to do to get things done. Very, very interesting. I also want to say, just by looking at the supposed yod that I think we have here, your Chiron in Leo in 11th house energy, the wound of self-expression, especially within finding your people, finding your social circles, and tapping into your wishes and your dreams. That in conjunction leads to an activation of you realizing who your people are, who you want to express yourself with and around, and what it is that you want to activate and shift. Sorry, I'm channeling as I'm speaking.
Oh, yeah, you're on.
I love it.
Cool. And ultimately, well, again, I think all three of us can agree we've had our fair share of experiences with that Chiron Leo opposition there. And that Chiron Leo opposition has that additional activation with that little yod we have here connecting to your North Node. So essentially, it's your subconscious programming of certain beliefs that you had about your self-worth, especially in showing up around communities that you resonate with. Obviously, through time, through experience, you find your people. I remember, Gio, we were talking recently, and you're like, shit, I wish there were more people close to me that are like-minded. He's like, raised in fucking Florida, you're all the way in fucking Canada, everyone's all over the place.
Yeah. With that earth trine, I need the physicality of it. Like, that's something that I crave. That's something that I crave. Like, and yeah, God, no, keep going.
No, that's pretty much what I was saying, though. Like, I just wanted to point that out there, and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you literally crave that physical grounding of like-minded people who share the same values, especially with your sun in the 8th house, wanting to see things beyond the veil. Jupiter in the 12th, a feeling expanded through tapping into that spirituality of yours. Of course, having that in the physical realm of things, it would be nice.
And there's Saturn in Aquarius going, yeah, but you're going to have to work with the technology and the Aquarian ways first and find your, it's like the 5th house of finding your creativity, which is the Leo house, right? Yes. So it's in the 5th house of Leo, even though it's, it's in Capricorn here. But like, yeah, and having to go through that and through the process that we've been going through for the past few years and learning to work with technology and finding those people and finding them through technology and the internet and communicating through that manner and that medium, and that's part of it. That's part of the journey, and that's why that restriction comes from that. That's why when you get in front of this camera and you have that Saturnian block of like, this is I don't feel this, but that's Saturn teaching you a lesson. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the main things that I see, especially with this, I mean, on a more mundane level, like this is one of the first things that I really noticed when it came to my coming into astrology. Just as a little side note, was always that Sun trine Jupiter in Taurus and Virgo. Like, was just the expansiveness of such, I want to eat and I want to eat a lot. I like food and I want to eat. I want to expand. I want to feel immersed in it, especially in the 12th house. Like, I just love it.
Spiritual.
But you're also building a garden. You're also building a garden. So how Taurian and freaking Virgoan is that? Yes. Oh my God.
Yes. But that required a little bit of a discipline too. But that's the other thing that I want to revert back to now too, is the fact that it's like, well, one, Jupiter's retrograde in my chart too. But the thing is, it's Jupiter's in a decan of Mercury, and so is my Saturn in Aquarius is in the decan of Mercury too, as well. So it's like, I communicated it before and stuff like that too, but there was the sense of like skating around it and being also very Taurian and lazy in nature about it as well too. But all right, besides that though is another thing that I've seen is obviously the Sun square Chiron being in the decan of the Sun as well, and being in Leo, the rulership of the Sun, and then also my Sun, that's my Sun in Taurus as well, being in the decan of the home sign of Venus as well. So too is that I have this very valued nature in wanting to come romanticize the comfortability of self, romanticize the comfortability of knowing my own comforts as well and stuff too. But I also feel like with a lot of my mutable energy, a lot of my mercurial energy, is that I don't know what to be comfortable with sometimes. Like, I don't know if what I'm comfortable with is good for me. I need that sort of analyst too. And that also has a lot to do, I feel like, for me, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, is I feel like that has a lot to do with my investment. And also the distrust because of my moon in Pisces as well, because of the overindulgence aspect, especially with Jupiter in the 12th house of Pisces, and in that sort of sense, and like this overindulgence, not trusting myself in that way, especially with past experiences too. But the nodal, I feel like for me, tells me that it's like it's like you can indulge with them if it has some sort of like nourishment and nurturing towards your roots and your lineage and your family and stuff like that too. But it needs to be with more so of less on the coddling side and less on the suckling at the teat, and more so at the being at the head of the family, being the leader, being the one pulling the rope and stuff like that. And I think that comes into question a lot with Chiron being in the 11th house, being in Leo as well, but also the Saturnian way of me. It's different. My Saturnian sense is very different and wants more so of an authority through creation and being able to do things differently than maybe what was originally programmed and stuff too, especially with all that, that my 4th house Capricornian energy that's in there as well. And I think Pallas is in there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that too. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that really does sum it up. I mean, we're solar. I think we got the solar energy pretty down pat. I mean, I think the main thing would be the trine and all of that, and how to use that. And Chiron and Leo being ruled by the sun, it's answering to the sun. So by you merging with the right people and gaining the right resources and investing in others, and the shared things, you're going to find the proper network of people to be in to express and heal that Leo energy, to heal that sun. So it's the Chiron is answering to the sun. What makes it ironic is that it's square, so it's forceful, right? It's going to be put in your face and all of that. And you've always said, like you've told me at times, just back in high school, to be a part of a friend group has always had that like awkwardness, or it's like, are these my people? And that's probably it. But by you knowing thyself, by you knowing that solar energy, by you going into your black sun and going into the higher and transmuting that into the higher energies of Taurus, by you working on self and knowing who to merge with, and then also then building an inner structure, having the authority on the outside through building the inner authority of the 8th house and having the right people around to help you do that, and then allowing your spirituality to be the kind of like the by you kind of like getting into the more meditational and surrender based type of consciousness, that's going to help you then build both. It's all feeding one another, right? So it's like whenever one thing isn't kind of like off, you could always revert back to, honestly, if I just to give you some of the best advice, I would say anytime you're feeling like a fucking piece of shit or that you can't get shit going, you go into that Jupiter and jump into meditation and you'll be just fine.
That's so crazy because stillness. I feel like there's always so you know what, that stillness, I think I need to come to terms with an acceptance. Because of the fact too is that my 7th house Aries energy, especially Mercury and Venus,
I was just about to say that is not a simple task for you to find that stillness.
It's not. It's telling me
naturally
to do
Virgo does not very easily let the mind quiet, and you've got Jupiter in the deacon Mars. Of Mercury.
Yeah.
So your mind wanting to shut up, you need to have a practice in that self.
Jupiter is answering to Mercury and Aries. So
1000%.
And I have also, that weird imbalance with my rising of what I'm on the outside,
and that's your chart ruler. I forgot.
with my Mars.
All right. Yeah. Mercury's your chart ruler in Aries.
I want to revert to the Aryan type energy and with my mercurial energy, but I guess that's just not what I'm supposed to do.
I'll let my progressed Aries energy just like on all of you guys, because I have so much of it right now. It's why I can't freaking sleep right now. Side note, I just realized we're all Venus and Aries people. Oh my goodness, all 3 of us. So we've all got that spunk in our heart space.
Passionate, little passionate.
I was like, smack myself with my book.
We like to be on the prowl, and we like to go be the we like to be the chase. We're the chaser. God. We don't like to be chased. We like to.
Do you know how awkward that was for me? What, back in the day before I had any game, I was the most awkward. I got myself into so much shit.
You don't even get, dude. You don't get. Well, you get it, but like I have Saturn partile square with that in Capricorn. So I can't even go on the chase until my structure, until I've achieved something, until I know my values and I'm living my values and they've become concrete earth. I don't even like to go chase. And that's there's a part of me that wants to play that game all the time, that Aryan game of, that Venus, like that. And to be honest with you, in other ways, that's why I love a lot of war movies or war shows, to Attack on Titan, right? And all the anime that I like, which is death and brutal, whatever. And it's all that because that Venusian energy is like, oh yeah, like that's the part of me. I love that whole warlike thing. And that's how I am in my relationships as well. Yeah.
My favorite show literally is Band of Brothers, bro. 7th house, Aries shit right there. Band of Brothers, it's all about World War II and about the guy next to you and shit like that. Venus, Mercury. Wait, real quick though. About
I would say, that's a lot of your Sun in Taurus and a lot of your South Node in Cancer appreciating origins in the past too. Yeah,
true. Yeah. But another thing that was funny, you were saying about the whole like the chase, and when we were talking about Venus and stuff like that, dude, I'm just realizing this now. Venus and the deacon of Jupiter in Aries, and I'm just like, oh, I always like to go after the big fish.
Yeah, well, we're only I think we're only a degree apart on that. Like I literally like to go outside of my league on like I can't not enjoy like, and I have Jupiter in Cancer too, so I also do like the Cancerian over the top. That's why I do. It's why I dated Nicole.
And guess what? Yeah. You got the luck.
Oh yeah, right. It just happens.
You've got the luck. You've got the luck.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's not forget, I've got the Cardinal Grand Cross with Venus and Aries conjunct my MC right at the freaking apex of it. So no matter what I do when it comes to love, it's always met with some kind of resistance that I've just had to learn how to find balance within. So I've gotten myself into a lot of trouble. I've had a lot of fun, but I've also had some of the best times in relationships ever. But the weird thing about having Venus in my 10th house conjunct my MC, hilarious. I have had so many people from long distances, like just through social media, like I've had long distance relationships, people literally being like, I've liked you for so long. Like, can I please go out with you? And I'm just like, you live in like a different continent, like a lot of like people from overseas like wanting to try, like this is like years ago, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Like I did a long distance relationship in Boston, like all these different things. I met my man, like the one I have right now, on vacation away from home, and it was just like really
long distance Jupiter,
and it's opposing. It's literally in the cross,
the valuable experiences too.
Yeah, but so Jupiter funny. Being Sagittarius, being other, all of that. Yeah, I got married when I was 26 to a girl that's Russian. So,
oh my gosh, we have so many stories. That would be fun. It's okay.
There's gonna be a lot more than transform too.
And that's what I'm. So I think
when we get to Venus, it'll be fun. We'll all have the same Venus sign to talk about in depth. It'll be fun.
Well, we just hit basically the 3-hour mark, so I think we can call it there. If there's anything else you guys want to add, I personally, I can't wait, and I think it'll be its own thing. I can't wait to get more of the biblical stuff, but I would say here I think we've done very well. This was very fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing, like the whole understanding. I mean, I guess there's a lot of people that might not understand the whole biblical reference of the sun and its movements astrotheologically and stuff like that too.
That's why it's its own thing.
Yeah, that's something to look into. That's so easy to find and stuff too, and then you could really apply what we've been talking about with that and stuff too. Just look at the sun, astrotheology and stuff. We'll go look up Santa Spinacci stuff. That's Bill pretty Donahue. Basic and stuff. And Bill Donahue. Fuck it, Bill Donahue. He'll give you that.
There's nobody better. There's nobody better than Bill Donahue. Yeah. And I found out that Donahue's Irish. So, and I know that you guys are the big Battalianos, but I'm half Irish, which is where I get my.
Bro, I always said I was like the other thing. Bro, you know I have my next trip to Europe is Scotland. I know it's not Irish.
I know, but they're always kind of exed in with one another. But yeah, no, it's that same area.
Scotland.
It's that whole area that I can't wait to go see all that stuff.
I do the greatest Scottish accent too.
Yeah, I think I have similar love for both roots. Like I am around the Italians all of the time. I never get to see my Irish side, but that's where I got a lot of my It's funny, that might be my South Node Leo, all that would like, because my grandfather was a Grammy-winning jazz guitar player, and
Whoa.
yeah, and that whole side was my musical side, which is Leo, right? Arts. So and I don't see them much, right? So but yeah, the Irish thing, Donahue. Yeah, go Irish.
I think we should do a whole other episode, not only on family ancestry, but even like astrocartography and like understanding your energetics around the world.
Sure.
Because that's a whole other can of worms I've been exploring. And like, since I moved up to New Liskeard, which is 600 kilometers away from my hometown where I was born, well, if you actually generate your chart and put the town or area you're living in, I mean, your chart stays the same, but your ascendant slightly shifts. And it's funny because here I'm a 1 degree Leo rising. Okay. And since I came here, my appearance has shifted. I'm a lot more confident. I'm performing on, I literally like put on shows on karaoke nights. This is the first time in a long time I'm not doing it. And I have people messaging me being like, where are you? And I'm like, go away. So it's funny because like never would I ever have done this in Hamilton. I would have been like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not good enough. And here I am like, I'm a superstar. Never used to be that person. But it's also this like crazy Aries energy fire. That's why I'm not sleeping. I literally like haven't had proper sleep in like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so,
you're indulging in it.
I've learned to tap into my moon in Cancer and suck on my thumb and just turn everything off and just sit in my crib. No, but I've actually learned to defeat a lot of my airy energy. I actually use pink noise to sleep. I use pink noise. By the way, both of you guys check out Healing Vibrations on YouTube. It's a guy who does singing bowls. What I do is I take my phone, I put the pink noise on, pretty good volume, and then I throw Healing Vibrations on, and he has a few that's for sleep, but for healing and whatever. And you put it on just the right volume, and you just shut everything out. You drift. And Gio knows I've had the most fucked up circadian rhythm. Like I write prog metal, like I use a lot of crazy time signatures. My brain is a crazy fucking prog song. You know, like I'm all over the place. That shit, I totally learned how to tune everything out. And I actually even got a sleep mask. You know, there's my Venus or my Mercury Taurus, right? Calm the mind with the Taurian sleep mask.
I do have a mask next to my bed, but I also have this over here because my head's always going. So it's like I need that.
I highly recommend Healing Vibrations on YouTube. It's a guy with singing bowls. You can't miss it.
And literally, that's what's happening tonight. 1000%.
I
highly recommend it.
I
just have an old man energy, and then if I really want to,
You really are a Vecchio. You're like a full-blown
Gio just gets out the cookies and crackers.
Bro, exactly. That's it. As soon as I put a little something in my mouth and I eat,
that's all it takes to put the bull to sleep by feeding him.
I get yelled at because after I eat, I sit there and I'm like watching something and I be full of energy. All of a sudden, next thing you know,
yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm out.
Well, all right. I think we can call it on that note. We got to bounce this video down. I got to give my computer away for 2 hours, which is okay. I think I'm hitting the sack. But
right. We're getting to the next one too.
Amanda, we do hope that you return.
I will be back.
And for the listeners, I think the more and more you tune in, especially if you already know astrology out there, it's fun to listen to, even if you got it. And if you don't, that's where we're trying to bring kind of both ends in on top of philosophy, theology and mythology, and just be more encompassing with the whole subject instead of just cookie cutter. Like we don't want to be part of any specific community. We want to bring it all in. So that's the goal here.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. And hey, if any of you viewers also want to comment on anything or have any questions or anything we want to touch upon for the next time we all come together, even just Gio and Ray on a different episode, please, let's start a conversation around this. You know, this is not cookie cutter astrology like we've said a million times. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Leave a comment. Hit that like button. If you leave a comment and stuff like that, and it's something more, in the lines of something to more breakdown, kind of how we were doing, we'll address it in the next video. Trust me, we'll see it. So,
and don't forget to hit up Amanda for an astrology reading too.
Yes, definitely.
Soon, me and Gio, but Amanda, you can have him for now. We'll get there.
Sounds good. Eventually, it'll be like a collective, like we are the astrology collective. Here, go to us for the different things.
Intrinsic astrology.
Intrinsic astrology. I don't know where that accent came from, by the way. It just kind of came out ever since you had a Russian ex-wife. I don't know. I just like naturally just like, oh, yes. Anyways.
What a story. That could be we could talk about that off air.
That needs a chart breakdown on its own.
Dude, we're a match, by the way, me and her. It's crazy. She's a Sag rising. She's born, she's older than I am. She's a Virgo. Born September 2nd. I think, but 1989. But her charts, Sag rising, Jupiter Cancer, Moon in Libra, so our Moon square.
I'm familiar with 89 baby charts. Very interesting year for those people. Holy smokes.
I got a bunch of them texting me right now. all my buddies that are a year older than I am, including my cousin. But anyway, so I'm gonna hit the button. We're good. Until next time. This was
like the video
energizing.
I know I have so much energy right now. I need to like go for a run or something. Like Aries.
It makes me ready for the next.
Yeah, man.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. I'm out. I will talk to you all soon.
All right. Adios, amigos. Have a good sleep.
You too. Yeah, you need it more than I do.
I do.